Spindrift.
It's a foamy bastard. Oh man, I don't know what happened.
I got the same issue.
I didn't even shake this thing.
I did when I mailed it to.
Sarah's making us look bad on her first run.
Yeah, clean pour.
I know.
Unbelievable.
Expert level.
Yeah, she's like, this is my 6th one today. Just execution.
That's how I prepare.
Totally.
Yeah, she got 2 4-packs for the episode. She's probably on can number 8 right now. Cheers, guys.
Cheers.
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 Cheers, everyone. Oh, that's good. Every time.
I thought this was going to be disgusting, but it's actually pretty nice. I'll tell you why in a second. Have you guys ever had a Moscow Mule? I didn't even know what it was because I don't drink hard alcohol.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's good stuff in the winter or summer.
So shout out to our mutual friend Brent Clark because he brought this one out for me from Wisconsin when we went backpacking together. He knew better than to arrive empty-handed. And this is a collab between Youngblood Beer Co. in Wisconsin and 608 Brewing Company, which who knows where they're from. But this is a Moscow Mule style. So a Moscow Mule style English summer ale with key lime and candied ginger. And it's 4.5%. So
Interesting.
Didn't know what to expect, but this is actually really nice. So good job, Brent. This, like the other beers he's brought me have been complete shit, but this one's actually pretty decent.
So it's a white
Way to
claw,
go, Brett.
is what you're saying.
That's pretty high alcohol for you, Salt Lake. You gonna be okay?
What are
I'll
you
have to
drinking
ship
over
you
there,
some-
Paul?
What's that?
I'll ship you some White Claws, Eric.
There you go.
I like this.
Okay, well, first of all, I want to start off with I got a really a surprise package landing tomorrow. No one's really going to know what it is, but there will be signs.
Little hint.
If you guys are picking up what I'm laying down,
It's a dope shirt.
it's there. Our parish package is on deck, and we'll land tomorrow between 4 and 6. So you all are in good hands.
Looking forward to that one.
Yeah, outside of that, it is fresh hop season. So I've got this bad boy going. It's fresh hop by Fort George. I got at least a 4-pack for all you guys. You're really going to enjoy this one. Comes out this time every year. And had a little bit of a, I let the team down last year when Bennett wanted me to score some of this for him. I dropped the ball. And almost did it again this year where I had to actually drive out to Beaverton, which isn't crazy far. It's about a 30-minute drive to score some because they ran out in Northwest where I usually go. But it's absolutely fantastic. It says it's 7%. It's loaded with tropical notes of mango and papaya. And if you've had the right before, the difference for me is it's got a little bit of a bite to it, which is absolutely fantastic. It's got, when that last drink when you hits your throat there, it's just got that nice bite, and it's great. It's one of my favorite fresh hops. So
Yeah, for me, it's just like a supercharged version of the normal ripe. But it tasted quite a bit different from last year, which is normal because like any kind of plant, like the yield is not going to be the same every single year. So yeah, these hops had like different character than last year's, I feel like.
would you say you liked it better, the same, or indifferent?
Last year, it was just like fresh squeezed orange juice. Like it was super intense, like orange flavors, which is pretty typical for Citra hops. This year, it was a little different. It's kind of like peach rings and like maybe some mango or something. Yeah. Yeah, quite different, but it was still really good. I liked it a lot.
Yeah, I wish I would have been able to get a little bit more because this is actually my last can. So R.I.P.
So Michael Bellino is here for this episode because Mike DiMiola was on call tonight, so we weren't sure if he was going to be able to make it. And Michael Bellino might be replacing Mike DiMiola because it just hasn't really been working out very well. So
That's true. It hasn't.
No,
No idea what I'm talking about.
He's got bladder issues.
he has much more expertise than I do about beer.
what are you drinking tonight, Bellino?
So what I got is a Roos Fresh Hop. And Roos is a brewing company here in Portland, Oregon, just about 2 miles from my house. And I know, Bennett, you've been there with me. I know, Paul, you and I have gone several times, but this is our Fresh Hop. And the can says American style India Pale Ale, but actually on the side it says hazy. But as I look at this thing, it's kind of like it's hazy. So
Looks pretty hazy to me.
hazy. Looks kind of what? Hazy?
Looks pretty hazy to me.
Yeah, it does. It's just kind of darker in color than I'm used to. It's Mosaic hops, I think, strictly, and it's really good. In terms of taste palette, I'm just not there yet with my beer connoisseurness. So I'll let Paul drink a can this weekend, and he can report back to you guys on all the nuances.
I'm stoked to try that.
I fondly remember sitting, I believe, at an Indian restaurant in Portland with Mike Bellino.
Years ago.
Making fun of all of the nuances and hidden flavors in beers. So the fact that you're here now.
Exactly.
He's come a long way.
I'm trying to get there. That's right. I think Ron and I were cracking up.
Yeah.
Even like chocolate has that like label where it talks about all the different notes within chocolate, and it's pretty fascinating.
Doesn't help
Nice.
that you don't have a sense of smell, right?
Yeah, it hurts me immensely in this regard, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for joining, Bellino. So, Sarah, what did you decide to bring for tonight's special occasion?
I chose a local cider, so snow-capped cider in the Honeycrisp flavor. And the reason I chose this one is because from our house in southwestern Colorado, we can look to the north and there's the largest flat-topped mountain in the world, Grand Mesa. And at the base of it, they grow some of the best peaches in the entire world, Palisade peaches. And then they also have orchards that grow apples and cherries and other things. And a couple of the orchards there have started making ciders and other things. They're wineries. So I thought it'd be fun to do something local. So snow-capped cider, it's 6.9%. And then I also
that's
chose,
pretty heavy.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
is.
I had to be, prepared for the discussion. I chose a bottle craft glass because I got this when we were hanging out with noted beer aficionado Jimmy Gakis, who's also a fantastic nature photographer in Solana Beach. So I thought a little cheers to Jimmy for introducing us to some great beers while we were with him. So cheers to you guys too.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Cheers. Well done on
Thanks, Sarah.
backing the cup. That's great.
So they grow Honeycrisp out there?
Yeah, the apples, the Honeycrisp apples. This is actually 100-year-old orchard, and they still produce the fruit, but they've started using it for things like ciders.
Honeycrisp is definitely like the best apple out there nowadays. Like, I don't know what I was
Agreed.
doing before the Honeycrisp came out. It's like
Yeah.
you get another apple and it's like gritty and like weird, and
Yeah.
Honeycrisp is perfect.
It's where it's at for sure.
Agreed.
That's like the peak of like human evolution. Like all of
I
So
I
Red
just
Delicious was our like tadpole stage.
I just read this morning in Minnesota, at some college, they developed a new apple, which is a cross between a Honeycrisp and one other apple. So this is supposed to be like the apple. They took the best
that's
of
the
both.
new hype apple.
Yeah, and they said
People are standing in line for like 6 hours and
dude,
For a
they are.
bushel.
They had this orchard up, and it was in a controlled environment, and they just said, "Hey, it's not going to be ready for consumption and consumers for a couple of years, but this is supposed to be the one."
Wow.
what's the name of that one? Neo?
Yeah, exactly. It's coming out of the Matrix. Yeah, so I don't have the official name, so we'll have to work backwards on that one.
Gonna be on the hunt for that one.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, this thing's nice. It's kind of like a key lime, like lager, I would describe it. I actually really like this, so thank you, Brent.
Jimmy, what are you pounding?
So I got these Noble Savage from a friend of mine in New Jersey who managed to get them out of Long Island. So it's they're out in Glen Cove, which is kind of near where Root and Branch is out on Long Island. And this one is Primordial Origins. And it's from the end of July. It's 8%, and it's got like a interesting mix of things. I'm trying to figure it out. It's the first time I've had it here. But they're saying it's like hopped with Southern Passion and something else here.
Southern Passion.
Southern
Jeez.
Passion.
That sounds like a movie.
Wait, Jimmy, you might have said, is it an IPA? What style is it? You might have
Yeah,
said
it's a
was
double
an
IPA. Yeah,
Double
they said, the malt is coming from the Hudson Valley. It's definitely, it has like a lot of tropical notes to it, which is kind of interesting. It feels like it's like a fruited one almost, but not really a fan yet. But we'll let it warm up a little bit and see how it rolls here tonight.
Quick comment, Jimmy.
Yo,
My pretty babies landed today. I haven't had a time to actually put eyes on them yet, but I've secured the perimeter and they're at the perfect temperature, awaiting my arrival post game.
Hey, you got to give them like a good massage and let them rest in the fridge for at least 24 hours after the arduous journey in the USPS flat rate trajectory.
I like to hug it out with each and every one of them. Maybe a little conversation.
They've been through a lot.
you open them now, they're gonna look like what Eric just poured.
Yeah, I'm gonna break them in. Yeah, they're
There's
waiting
another
my-
box. There's another box coming.
What? Whoa!
Like
Come to daddy,
looking out for you.
man. You're too kind.
And Mike DiMiele is going hard tonight.
Spindrift, sparkling water. It's grapefruit though, so about the best
Hey.
I could do.
What's
That's
the
cool.
what's the percent in that thing?
It's hang on, let me check.
0.00001.
0.0, yeah. That's actually, so Spindrift does make alcoholic ciders, which I just found out about not too long ago.
Or even like a banana will have like 0.05 alcohol, or like dark chocolate.
Really?
You know, a lot of stuff that we consume on a daily basis has alcohol.
Yeah, not this stuff. For the record,
Just to keep it
that-
clean.
just in case the
Without dragging
CEO of
it
the
on.
hospital watches this.
We're
Without
good.
dragging it on too long,
Yeah, right.
I wanted to mention this one because I'm still working on it, but this is a triple IPA.
Such a cool can.
Yeah, from Root and Branch and Brewhouse. This is a collab, and this one has Manelita hops, which I've never heard of, and Motueka and Nelson hops, which are both from New Zealand. So I imagine Manelita is probably from New Zealand as well, but pretty cool to try that one out for the first time. And this thing is so smooth and so delicious. I was super stoked I could get this one.
Dude, is that out of San Diego?
What, Root and Branch?
Yeah.
No, they're in Long Island, New York.
Oh,
Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
10, 15 minutes from the Noble Savage.
How'd you get that thing?
Yeah, sorry, Paul. Me and Jimmy get their stuff from time to time because we got trading partners. But yeah, you got to up your network.
Oh man, I'm really
I didn't get that one though, Eric.
feeling some.
Yeah, my buddy here in Salt Lake got a 4-pack of this one, so I was able to trade him a Fidens for that one and some other stuff. So,
Pretty solid.
anyways, Sarah, thanks for coming on. What have you been up to? What's new in your life? You guys
Well-
went to Alaska recently. Yeah, that's the most recent trip you guys did.
Yeah, we were in Alaska for 2.5 weeks and it was amazing. The weather was absolutely horrible, so I don't want to raise the expectations on the photo side, but we had just a fantastic experience. So we're hoping to go back with our RV in the future. So yeah, clearly Ron might have provided some of these. Yeah, so
Is this like
pretty much the summer.
ICM or what's going on with this one?
Yeah, right.
Being covered in water constantly. Every moment you're outside, the phone's covered in water, the camera's covered in water. Yeah.
Was this in August? Sarah?
Yeah, it was. It was the last week of August-ish and the first week and a half of September, which was probably about a week too early for the higher elevation fall colors, which is what we were interested in. So this was at Kenai Fjords National Park, which was incredible.
So when you say Alaska fall color, are you talking like tundra and like willow brush type of stuff, or like aspens and like?
We were going for the tundra. We wanted to mostly work with the tundra along the Denali Highway and in Denali National Park. But there were along the way, the Glen Highway on the way back to Anchorage, I was absolutely shocked at how many aspens there were along there, and they were just getting started. But the tundra, it's crazy to see mountains that are red because the tundra is turning red. So that was pretty incredible. Then we did a really big swing. We rented a small motor home, and when you look at Alaska, it's this big, and the route we did is like tiny, like a tiny piece of it, and it was like 1,300 miles. So
Wow.
it's just, when you hear about the vastness of the last frontier, you don't grasp it at all until you're actually standing in a place where there's not a building or any structure or any human presence for 100 and some miles at least. And you can see trees as far as I can see out on these big glacial plains, and then massive glacial covered mountains behind you. And it's just incredible. It's true wilderness.
Sounds super boring. Like it's probably no Wi-Fi or like, yeah, like, what are you gonna do out there? You know, kind of ghetto.
Yeah. We saw a lot of bears. We saw all sorts of wildlife. It's like, it was great not having internet for a while, actually. So yeah, it was
awesome.
fantastic. Can't wait to get back.
And so for people that don't know, you're married to Ron Cascarosa, who is a horrible nature photographer, but
Unprofessional. I think you'd prefer that you say he's an unprofessional nature photographer.
and you guys live in Colorado, and you were saying the fall colors kind of just starting over there right now?
Yeah, for the most part. So we live in southwestern Colorado on the northern side of the San Juan Mountains. So if people are familiar with Ouray and Telluride, we live in one of the little towns north of there. And generally we can see some hills and mountains from our house, and there's still just that little tiny bit of yellow at the very top. So it'll happen if this windstorm doesn't strip all the leaves off the trees over the next few days. But yeah, we're planning to stay here until the last leaf falls off the trees, and then head to Utah. So
Nice.
we're trying to expand our fall each year by a little bit more. So starting in Alaska in August and ending in Death Valley in December, so that we get as much fall color as possible.
Nice.
That's cool.
Great.
That's super.
I've
that's
heard of
super cool.
Utah. It seems all right.
Yeah, that's the one we're not really looking forward to that much.
So despite all the rain and stuff, it seems like you were able to do some wildlife photography.
Oh my god.
Don't ask me where I got this, but
Actually, I post things in that group and forget that it's public. Yeah.
so this is a sea lion grabbing a salmon, but it's also like that's semen
they call
squirting
it-
out of
I'm
it.
not using that word.
They call that a money shot.
Well, there goes this episode. That's gonna get nixed by YouTube. Beep that out for sure.
Ladies and gentlemen.
This one was a squirter.
I have another photo of a bear with a bear,
Oh no.
and it's like kind of drawn in a ribbon. So that one's actually probably more interesting. This one.
This might be the best photo on the show we've ever seen.
Yeah, now I'm
no.
curious
Oh, God.
who gave that to you.
No, but I was pretty surprised because I had no idea that they did this like when they're dying, or I don't know if it's like the pressure of like being bitten or something. And this one's like squirting out eggs.
Wow.
Do you know anything
man.
about that? I've never seen that in photos, or like I went salmon fishing in Alaska and I never saw this, so I feel kind of gypped. Like I never got this part of the experience.
Well, in terms of the biological side, it seems like it has to be a biological result because there's so many salmon. So I'm now completely fascinated with salmon spotting. It's the fact that the salmon in this sea lion's mouth, it has come all the way back from its time at sea, and it's trying to lay its eggs so that it can continue on to the next generation. And it's being eaten by a sea lion right before it meets that ultimate reproductive goal. So it's a really sad ending for this, but it seems like once it's being bitten, it seems like the salmon is biologically programmed to release its reproductive products into the water because there are so many salmon swirling around. So it's very possible that these eggs were fertilized and there might be baby salmon coming as a result next spring.
That is so crazy.
Wild.
Okay.
Look at this stream on this one.
Jesus.
Oh boy.
Must be a professional.
We're going to have to rate this episode
fishing.
a little differently.
It's natural
kind of show
history
is this?
programming. There's nothing that it's nature.
But I had no idea. I'd never heard of this or seen this before, so I'm surprised. I don't know. Maybe you captured something special, or this is something that people like cull out of their galleries. You know, they choose not to share this intimate side of nature.
Yeah, I have a lot of the sea lions eating. They're stellar sea lions, and they are hilarious to watch. They're very aggressive with each other too. So fighting, barking, making all sorts of sounds. The fishing is fascinating, but it's all pretty gory. And I just don't think that this necessarily has a place in my like light, bright, happy nature photography portfolio. So even though like this is a pretty cool moment, I thought that the only people that would see it would be Ron and the people on this Discord server, but apparently that's now no longer the case.
We're bringing it to our 12 subscribers.
Are those so there's a lot of fish behind the bear. Are those
The background's like pretty blurry, but it looks like there's just like a massacre of like dead fish all over the shore.
Yeah.
Are they spawned out?
The sea lions would actually eat them. So they would kind of like flop them onto the surface of the ocean, which would essentially cut the salmon in half. And then a bunch of seabirds would come in and eat whatever was remaining while the sea lion was eating half of it, and then it would eat the next half. Versus the bears. So the bears were only looking for eggs. If they found a male salmon, they would maim it, so bite it, and then just leave it on the ground because they realized there aren't any eggs. They weren't eating them. They were simply looking for the eggs. So
That's crazy.
pushing their foot
Crazy.
onto the body of the salmon. If eggs came out, they'd eat the eggs and then leave
like
the
caviar.
salmon like flopping.
I know, right?
So we called it on our GPS when we marked the spot where we saw this bear. It's like salmon maiming because that's all that was taking place is the bears were maiming the salmon. They were eating the eggs, leaving them to die.
They're just like total salmon snobs, like kind of like humans, like hunting like elephants and rhinos just for the horns or something. Like,
yeah,
It was so crazy.
So it was pretty fascinating to watch. I felt very fortunate to experience this. Like the first time we pulled up and saw the sea lions hunting, I saw it slapping the salmon on the water. I just recoiled and was like, oh my God, that was so incredibly violent. And I just couldn't quite, it was just so violent. And then by the end of a couple of hours of watching them, it's like, get it. Like I wanted to get it. So it was just again, not super photographically productive. Like I don't think I'll share any of these anywhere except for here. But it was just such an incredible experience. I have so much more appreciation for salmon than I ever did before. And now I want to learn more. I was sitting in our RV in Alaska looking up like PDFs from the Valdez Fishing Commission because I was so fascinated in the salmon spawning process and the salmon hatchery. And it's like, I'm maybe going a little too far down this rabbit hole, but it was a pretty fascinating experience.
Were you eating lox while you were doing that, or were you?
Yes.
Well, in some ways, I won't get into my eating habits, but It actually, because I don't eat meat, but I will occasionally eat fish, and it actually made me feel a little better about it. But that's a more complicated conversation that we probably need to get into here.
You don't want to argue for the next 30 minutes about it.
Oh my God.
All right, off to a good start. So you're interested in plants and things.
I take photos of pretty much every mushroom that I see because I'm absolutely fascinated by them. So no, I was just taking photos of mushrooms. While we're talking, I can see if I can find one of my galleries on my phone, because it's just, they're such a fascinating part of nature. So I just take a ton of photos.
Yeah, mushrooms are pretty crazy. I'm reading a book right now called Entangled Life by Merlin something. His last name is kind of weird, but that's a really fascinating book if you haven't read it.
I've read part of it, haven't read the whole thing.
It's pretty crazy. Yeah, and there's so much that we will never know about mushrooms because it's just impossible to figure out.
Yeah, and slime molds and other all sorts of fungus. It's one of I think of mushrooms as a gift of the forest. For close observers. If you look closely, you'll see all kinds of crazy stuff, including lots of mushrooms and different fungus. That's just wild. So
yeah, and it's just it's its own kingdom. There's such a huge variety of species, and they can offer medicinal benefits and psychoactive benefits and all these different things. It's super crazy, and for different kinds of species too, because they affect every kind of animal that eats them differently.
Yeah, the cordyceps ones that it turn ants and other bugs into zombies. It just blows your mind.
it'll make them climb up a tree to a certain height that the mushroom requires in order to reproduce, and then it'll just explode and rain down spores all over the ants down below and infect them as well. It's really crazy.
Like a bear grabbing a male salmon.
That's so crazy.
Yeah, no, it's super nuts.
Oh, that was fun. Yeah.
I think this is the first time you and I ever met.
Yeah, that's very possible.
Yeah, when me and Giselle came after our backpacking trip, and we were watching the solar eclipse.
That's a cool photo.
Yeah, so there's Alex Noriega and David Kingham, Jennifer Renwick, and then Jason Hatfield's wife. I forget her name. Megan Hatfield.
Yeah, that was so much fun. That group of people, we pretty much all were we're not going to photograph it. We're just going to enjoy it. And then about 15 minutes before the eclipse is about to happen, you start seeing the tripods slowly come out. And it's I'm just going to set up my iPhone. And then by the time the eclipse actually started, every tripod that was there, multiple cameras, multiple iPhones, everybody had at least 2 cameras photographing the whole thing. So we ended up all photographing it, I think, which I don't know if that enhanced the experience or took away from it, actually.
I don't know. Awesome. That's pretty insane, though.
And this particular setting was pretty cool because I normally wouldn't be excited about being on public grazing land, but there were cows nearby. So as the eclipse happened, they were just going crazy because it's dark in the middle of the day. So between the birds and the cows and the crazy silvery light, it felt a little bit more tangible, I think, because of how the animals that were nearby were reacting, in addition to how we were experiencing it.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the lesson from Eric showing this photo is that if you can see the one next year in April, do it, because it's one of those life affirming experiences where it's only going to be 4 minutes. Is it really that exciting? Yes, it's incredible. It's so cool to see.
Yeah.
Why is there a tripod with a camera on top of the trailer?
That's a good question.
That's the same thing.
The center column wouldn't go that tall.
Well, the center column's half mast, all right?
Yeah, it's got a starter kit on it.
That's funny. I just noticed that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was a super cool thing. I remember being kind of I just wasn't that excited about the solar eclipse. I just happened to be out in Wyoming during the time that it was going to be happening. So I was like, okay, yeah, I'll go and watch it. And I met up with you guys. But then when it actually happened, I was like, wow, I'm so glad I actually came like in an area where the totality was happening, and it was insane. It was an experience I'll never forget.
Yeah.
Are any of you guys going to try to see it next year?
Yeah.
What part of Texas is it going to be in? Houston?
Austin? Well, it's actually going over, I think, most of the major cities is the path, which means pretty much everything in that path is either booked or very expensive.
Yeah, I would love to, because the last one, it seemed very complicated to do something. I mean, they were just forecasting, just a lot of like traffic and
Chaos.
issues and all this. Yeah, absolutely, Bolino. So I definitely observed it, but it was more like parking lot style as opposed to from a photographic standpoint. And I like to do it differently, for sure.
Did you see totality, or did you just watch like partial? Like,
No, I watched it all.
Okay, yeah.
You?
Yeah, when I meet people who said they didn't see a totality, I kind of have to mute myself, because like totality was such an amazing experience. We were in Driggs, Idaho, on the backside of the Tetons, not too far from where you guys were, and it absolutely blew my mind for sure. Those 3 minutes were so special, and for sure I want to see as many as I can between now and when I move on.
Was it 3 minutes long?
It's like 3 or 4, right?
This one's
I guess
longer. This
Totality
one's
may have been
almost
like 90 seconds, but like the whole transit, maybe? I can't remember.
I think this
like
one's
in my
almost 4.5
memory. Okay, because in my memory, I remember it being like way faster. Like
It seems so fast. I took a few photos and I regretted it. You know what I'm saying? It just wasn't worth it. I should have just enjoyed it. Like fully just enjoyed the experience.
I think photographers have a hard time enjoying things though without their camera.
Well, the story of all of us that day tells that, like, yeah, we all ended up with multiple cameras out. And
I mean, just to be able to zoom in on it, like, I guess that makes a difference. Like,
Yeah.
seeing it a little bit closer than you can with the naked eye.
yeah, like seeing the corona kind of dancing a little bit, that's something that's a lot harder to see with the naked eye. So in that sense, being able to zoom in, that enhances it. But the process of being worried about, am I focused correctly? Am I getting all the technical things right? It's moving out of my frame. I need to reframe everything and then refocus. Like, that's the part that I remember of, I just kind of wish I had watched it instead of thinking about all of that stuff.
Look how everyone's just like all chill, and then Alex Noriega's just like having the time of his life.
True story.
Well, he's super into space, so it makes sense that he's incredibly enthusiastic.
But this photo wasn't during the eclipse. This was just like before or after, when we were just sitting looking at the sun.
Y'all are pre-gaming without the pre-game.
I think it was post-gaming.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, I think we took this after.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And it was Ron's birthday around then, so I bought him a birthday cake, which ended up being this absolutely massive birthday cake. So we all ate cake for like 4 days, and it was
That's great.
one of the best birthday cakes ever from the little tiny grocery store in I can't remember what the little gateway town was. Lots of great conversation, joking around. The seeds of my friendship with Eric.
Yeah, what's crazy is like this seems like it was just like a couple of years ago, but Giselle and I were like barely dating when this happened. We had been dating for like 6 months maybe, and now we've been married for over 5 years, and we have 2 kids together. Like,
Wow.
That is so
Well,
crazy.
yeah, when was it? What year was it?
2018? No, 2017.
Wow.
I didn't even start
2017.
doing photography yet.
That means
You
you've come
did
a
it,
long
Mike?
way.
No, I didn't really start doing like photography seriously until 2018. So
Yeah, well, it shows in your work, so I'm not surprised.
I know I'm
I
coming
said
along.
something
I'm
nice.
amazed.
and then
That's
Sarah
Eric's stance.
getting dirty.
This is a masterpiece of a photo. Credit to Ron. This is beautiful. This is art. Not all photographs are art, but this one.
Oh my gosh.
That's awesome.
Found some
Oh,
nice
it's beautiful.
mud. That's really.
Right, that's what I was talking about.
Ron's a savage.
All I see is me taking a photograph of some mud cracks. I don't know what you guys
That's what we all see, Sarah. That's what we all see.
Oh God.
And my second beer is
So I've been telling Ron this week, after watching your episode with Mike Bellino, telling Ron, like, I really hope I'm not embarrassed. Like, I don't want to embarrass myself. And he helps, because who else did you get this from except for Ron?
Sarah, you're doing great.
Further embarrassment.
No, I just searched up Sarah Marino on Google Images, and all these images came up. These are like the first 10, so I just grabbed them. And
Yeah, this
they're
is
out
dark.
there.
This is dark web stuff.
Before this pandemic, we used to get a group of photographer friends together in Anza-Borrego or New Year's Eve, and it was so much fun. And I'm pretty sure this was taken on one of those days.
So it must have been the year that we went, like that was like the last get together we did, right? Like
was
probably
the one-
2018.
Yeah, 2019.
2019, before the pandemic.
Before the pandemic, yeah.
Gotta start doing them again.
We do. It was super fun.
I'll bring my 2 little
Yeah, it was
kids and
fun.
they'll just like scream the whole time and ruin it for you guys.
Oh, I loved spending time with your daughters. Like when they were,
Oh yeah.
yeah, like you brought your kids, and it was super fun.
We have
know
a toddler
the
and a
two
baby
new
now.
ones are younger, obviously.
But I actually took Clyde camping for the first time this weekend, and it was amazing. He loved it, and we had such a good time. It was super special. So I'm looking forward to taking him to more places because
It's awesome.
it's fantastic.
Those photos were great. What a capture.
Yeah.
Perfect timing. Great use of
yeah.
light and
Yeah.
shadow.
The decisive moment for sure. Oh, like
So do you do most of your photography like from the inside of your Airstream? Is that how this works?
that's actually not our Airstream. That's in Alaska. And this is actually one of the things that annoys me most about my reputation in the photography world is I think people think because I do small scenes a lot. I do grand landscapes too, but I mostly photograph intimate landscapes, plants, and that kind of thing. I think people have this perception that I just like do roadside stuff when I actually do a lot of hiking. And I feel like this only reinforces that perception. I'm not even outside.
You're like, this
Do
is
you
bullshit.
remember this? Like, did you
This is
actually make a
bullshit.
portfolio image?
So it was raining super hard. So that's part of the reason I was inside like this, because it was raining so hard. And yeah, I actually think it's a waterfall, kind of 4 tiers of a waterfall, and then a misty background. And I think it deserves a place in my Alaska portfolio because it rained constantly and it's like super misty. So it feels like part of the experience. I don't know that I want this attached to people but the perception of me as a photographer, because I'd rather be known for my hiking pursuits. Like I've hiked to almost 75 canyons in Death Valley. Like that I would rather be known for than this.
Yeah, so now when your Alaska portfolio does come out at some point, we'll know that you shot it all within the comfort of your RV that you guys
Yeah.
rented.
We did not do much hiking there. And that's for a few different reasons. When I was looking at the map, planning places that I wanted to hike, I didn't realize that those were ATV trails. They were not necessarily hiking trails. So they were marked like what we would see on maps in the lower 48 as hiking trails, but they weren't. And then it was hunting season. So in some of the more remote places, I didn't feel comfortable like ducking down below the bushes and then popping up and then ducking down, like doing kind of things that would like just potentially be dangerous in an area with a ton of hunters, like moving like an animal might move. And I have clothes that kind of blend into the landscape. So yeah, next time we go back, I want to do a lot of hiking in Denali National Park. But so yeah.
So here in Utah, hunting season is like in the fall, and that's mainly because that's when like the deer and the elk and moose are like rutting, so they're easier to hunt, I guess, this time of year. And I've been like out in aspen forest and stuff in some of these canyons, like shooting, and I've literally heard bullets like whizzing by, like
Yeah, the first day that we were out on the Denali Highway, which is this gravel road between Denali National Park and Wrangell St. Elias National Park, and that was the main thing we wanted to do on this trip, and that's where I had all these hikes that we were going to do planned. And the first place we stopped and started walking down to a lake, we start hearing gunshots, and they were just too close for comfort. So it's like we're just not going to do any hiking on this trip, and that's okay. So we did some hiking in Denali, and then we did some other like shorter walks, but nothing like what I would typically do on a trip. And yes, it was raining constantly. So when I figured out that I could open the screen and the window of the RV, I did use it to my advantage on a few occasions. Don't know what to say about this one. This one's in Death Valley. Taking photos of mud cracks. That's what I do.
You like mud?
I like mud. Yeah.
Those are nice.
Those are good cracks.
Yeah, there were coyote prints that were really cool all over that section. So a coyote was doing something in that area that wasn't just walking through. So we never actually went back there to take photos. We were just walking around exploring, but never actually went back with our camera gear.
So how long have you and Ron been married for now?
We met in 2011. So we met in October of 2011. And I think I can't remember what year we got married. So it's been...
Sarah, you need to work through that real quick.
Yeah, that's like the typical guy thing. I'm surprised.
Yeah,
that
we'll
you
edit
forgot
that out.
Hey, Bennett, edit that shit.
I will.
The
for
mulligan
sure.
on that one.
I've never...
And action.
I can think of like one gift that I've received from Ron, and we don't exchange gifts. It's good. I don't think he'll care that I don't remember. It's probably like 2015, 2016, somewhere in there.
And something I've always wondered is like when like you guys always travel together. You guys like never really go off on your own. I feel like you guys are always together. Is there ever any like difficulty in just like agreeing on what location to go to, or like, you know, because I feel like if I was like married to a photographer, like maybe she wants to go to Iceland and I'm like, no, that time of year I want to be in New Zealand or something. Like, do you guys ever have a hard time agreeing on where to go or any stuff like that, like coordinating?
We have pretty much no conflicts around photography.
Do you think that's more because of you or because of Ron? Like, do you think he's just down for anything, or is it that you're down for anything, or you guys both just have like super similar interests?
I think it's partially super similar interests, and then I think we do a pretty good give and take. Like if we're in a single place, and he chooses the hike we do one day, I choose the hike we do the other day, and we just work it out. It's a pretty equal sharing of decision making. With regard to our photography travel, over the last couple of years, it's been more based on my teaching schedule. So if we went to Acadia because I was teaching at a conference, and that's totally fine. I think we're both just also super open-minded. Like we know we're going to be happy anywhere. And yes, there are places we want to go, and we're trying to do more international travel now that COVID has mostly moved on. And so we're working through the places we most want to go. And like, I want to go to Patagonia. He doesn't want to do that as much. He might want to go back to Japan. I'm not quite as excited about that, but we'll figure it out. And there will be very, very little conflict.
So like, do you think you would go to Patagonia by yourself, or he would just come with you because he's just down, and vice versa, like for Japan?
You know, like I've never thought about it as like, I want to go do stuff on my own because we have a lot of compatibility. I enjoy probably doing stuff with Ron and other people more than he does. Like, I don't mind going out and photographing with other people. I think he finds that a little bit more distracting. And I'm much more social. So like, I am the last to leave parties. I like talking. I like socializing. And he's like, okay, we agreed that it's 9. We were going to leave at 9 and it's like 10:30. So it's time to go. So I think we just figure it out. I don't know. We get this question a lot of like, are you guys competitive, or who's the better photographer? And we just never think about it in those terms.
And you guys never share gear, right? You guys all have, like, you both have your own setups entirely.
Yeah, we use the exact same system, but we have 2 sets of everything.
Okay.
So unless it's something like, oh, I forgot my memory card, can I borrow one of yours? Or like we only brought a few batteries to Alaska because he thought I had the batteries, I thought he had the batteries, so we had very few batteries. So in that like constant negotiation over who's going to provide the batteries for the other person. But yeah, there's just no competition. It's pretty seamless. We don't have conflict
Okay.
about photography or locations or anything.
What if like one of you finds something super cool and like you don't tell the other? Like, has there ever been like any kind of contention with like, you know, I don't know.
Hey, Eric, is this a marriage
jealousy?
counseling
Yeah, it's like,
Oh,
like
shit.
Eric's trying to cause tension in my marriage.
What about deciding on which photos to print and hang in the house?
How does that make you feel? Hey, Sarah, how does that make you feel?
Well, we don't have that many
So
photos
like
hanging in
you
our house.
you have like one wall. You got to decide on one photo. Is it yours or is it Ron's? Like,
It probably would be Ron's because he's more motivated to print things than I am. So
and you
Safe
don't
answer.
feel like you don't have bitter feelings or anything. Like,
no.
should have
I
been
don't.
mine. Mine was better.
So since you're looking for this little source of tension, I think the only thing is
Jesus.
around things like doing our ebooks together, where we're working on a book together, like a real printed book. And I do feel a lot of ownership over that project. And that's where I have to coach myself to not fight this battle. Like, this is a collaborative project. This is not just my book.
Why do you feel more ownership? Like, because you're putting more effort into it? Like,
Well, he's a full-time software engineer, so he has a full-time job. And
Yeah.
I have the privilege to do photography as my job. So I'm doing, his name appears on some of the stuff that we do, but like I'm working on something where both of our names are going to appear on it, but I'm doing most of the work. A lot of it's his ideas, but I'm doing a lot of the writing. I'm choosing the
so
photos.
he's not picking up the slack. He's reaping the rewards and just riding your coattails.
But he's working at his job, Eric.
Hey, Sarah, your ebooks are awesome, by the way.
Thank you.
They're
Appreciate
really,
that.
Yeah, they really are.
they're really
Thank you.
great, and they're extremely detailed. And I've purchased a few of them. I really, really love them.
Thank you.
What is this?
This is
I
Ron
don't even
and
know how to
Alex.
explain. Yeah, it's Alex Noriega and Ron with my eyes.
It seemed important to me.
So
is great.
there's this. I speak with, or when I have an emotional reaction, my face totally gives it away. So I would not be a good poker player at all, or anything that requires that, like not showing emotion on your face. So I'll do the like roll the eyes, just like. So those are what they call the ojos. So the Alex and Ron
Spanish for eyes, for those
Spanish
that
for
don't
eyes
speak
that I'm
Spanish
giving
like me.
the ojos. So yeah,
That's good pronunciation, Sarah.
thank you.
Instead of ojos, like Paul would
Ojos.
say.
The quesadilla.
Just.
Yes.
True story.
All right.
I'm hoping we're okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Sarah's off the hook.
Right.
We covered a lot of ground in that intro.
Yeah.
There.
Her marriage is still intact,
and-
so that's good.
Yeah,
I survived round one.
I want other people to talk. I don't want this just to be me talking about ridiculous photos of me.
This is great.
So I chose this one from Alex Burke. So Alex is a Colorado photographer who we've met him in person, but only a time or two. And since we
And
met
he's
him,
a film photographer, like large format film, or
I think he's medium format. I think
Okay.
he does 4x5. I think. Don't count me on that for sure. And I think he does beautiful, minimalist, but not too minimalist compositions. And I think he has just, I really like the feel of his photographs in the sense of like his work from the prairies is especially light and bright and luminous. I think he just does a really nice job with colors, and I don't know how much processing he does on his files once he digitizes them. And the reason that I chose this photo is because it's from Alaska, and he published his Alaska trip report while we were there. And in reading it, he was communicating about experiences that were so similar to what we were having. And I think it was such a great resource. So if anybody's interested in going to Alaska, his trip reports were great. But I liked this in particular, this photo, because in the trip report, he made the mention of, in Alaska, you'll see a lake in a photo and you'll think, oh, that's like a little tiny pond that I could just walk to. When in reality, it's like a massive lake and it's miles, potentially a couple miles away. And this photo gives that feel of where I think you initially look at it and think, oh, like I could easily reach that. I could stand on the side of that lake very quickly. But then once you start looking at how small the bushes are and how small the grasses are on the edges, it's a big body of water and it's probably pretty far away. The light on the mountains I thought was really nice, and just the layers of fall colors. So I thought everything came together really nicely. And I just wanted to recognize the fact that his blog posts on Alaska, I think, are particularly useful for photographers.
Yeah, he's got a lot of really nice stuff. I've been following him for a couple years now. Yeah, what's interesting about this one is like, it's, when you think about it, it's like pristine landscape. Like there's no social trails or anything by the lakeshore or anything like that. And I didn't even think it was a lake because of the scale. I was thinking it was like a small stream or something. But yeah, this one's just like super classy. It's not over the top. Really nice color palette here. Obviously amazing light and atmosphere in the background. But the peaks aren't like super crazy or jagged or pointy. And yet they still have that nice visual impact. So yeah, I was glad you chose this one because yeah, he's got a lot of great stuff and probably flies a little under the radar. Probably doesn't get as much recognition as he deserves, but
yeah, he's also he gets off the beaten path a lot. I think he works my impression is he works really hard for his photographs. And when we met him, he, I think, was working full-time as a mechanic and decided that he wanted to try to make a life in photography. And the fact that he's been successful, and I think he's been quite successful. It's fun to see somebody go from a job that I think he enjoyed it, but now he's living exactly how he wants to live. And this is all my perception. Again, I've only met him a few times, but I just really respect that. And I also like his work in terms of the grand landscapes. Is I think they feel more like classic grand landscape photography. And I'm gravitating a lot more to that style. Now I'm starting to think of myself as a classical landscape photographer because those scenes just resonate a lot more with me.
So what would you define classical photography? Because I also agree, like there's like photographs that just feel classy, but how would you define that?
I think that it's landscapes that aren't so in your face, like where it feels like
overly obvious.
Like if I moved forward an inch, I'm going to trip over that massive bunch of daisies, which is actually probably in fact like 6 inches tall. I think those perspective tricks were cool when they came out, but this kind of scene where I think it just feels more like what you experience. If you were hiking across this tundra, this is what you would feel. And like, this is what you might remember in your mind. And I think that's more what resonates with me, is the perspective feels more like what it feels like being outside.
Yeah. And it's kind of just like timeless, I would say. Like, it's not like that stuff that you were describing was cool for a few years on 500px. And then after a while, it just becomes redundant really quickly. But like classy photography never gets old. Like it's just, it looks cool. Like if it was photographed in the 1970s or 1960s, and it still looks cool like in 2040, you know, like there's just like a certain, the fact that it's not over the top or like overly obvious just kind of makes it more tasteful and like, yeah, it just ages really well.
One thing that you guys were talking about in your episode with Mike Bellino was about perfection. And I think that's another thing of where it's like the grasses in the lower left corner, or the bush that intersects a little bit with the lake. Those are things that I think so many photographers would be tempted to clone out when actually they add, I think, a little bit of character and visual interest. And again, they just make it feel more real to me.
Yeah.
And I think I'm gravitating back towards more that style of photography.
I'm the same way. I was scared to have like any kind of imperfection in my images, but then I realized like as you polish something more and more and more, eventually it just feels sterile and it no longer resembles nature or like something that somebody could actually experience.
Agreed.
Yeah, totally agree with all that. I think also just like you said, the perspective is more of like a normal focal length. I'm not really sure what focal length you used, but just the proportions are perfect. Like the layering, how the water mimics the light in the mountain, the layers and proportion are perfect. It's just a well thought out and scene, and he executed it really, really well. So it's great.
Yep, totally agree. Is this a good spot to talk about the beer I just cracked?
It's always a good spot to do that, Paul.
Okay.
Never a bad moment.
Okay, well, I'm going with the Great Notion theme tonight. And this, my friends, I wish I would have got more. This is an absolute banger.
What you got, man?
It's a Great Notion Furry. And it's new. I had never tried it, and so I just picked up a 4-pack just to kind of gamble. They told me it was really great, so I tried it, and it's 7%, and it's got Mosaic hops in it, Idaho 7 Galaxy hops, and man, this thing is really good. I wish I would have gotten some more, and I wish I would have gotten some more to share with you guys. So I think I have a couple more left for Bellino and I to enjoy this weekend.
Yes.
Up at Mount Rainier, but
Jealous.
you savages are going to have to wait till next year. But I'll definitely save this one on the list. It's really good. Yeah, this is super nice. I was really stoked when I cracked that first can. So, Bellino, giddy up.
Let's do it. Looking forward to it.
What would you say it was called?
Furry.
Furry or Fury?
Fury. Either one. I'm staying with it. There we go.
I think it's Fury. Is
Fury.
it 2
Fury.
R's?
Okay,
I saw that. I'm like, wait.
so I
Is
may
it
have been
furries like where they dress up in like costumes and like
Hey,
do
Mike,
stuff
Yeah,
you
the
can't talk
cats.
about
Mike.
on YouTube?
Mike, that's Vermont shit. I don't need
Yeah,
to.
yeah, bringing Vermont to the world, baby.
Where's the tiger suit when you need it?
I'm gonna go get it. I don't know.
Well, since we took an intermission, I decided to crack another one. This is a double IPA from Monkish Brewing in LA. And they're known for their triple IPAs for being really smooth and flavorful. And actually, they were my favorite brewery for a long time. They kind of sprung up after Other Half and were pretty much the best until Fidens came around, I would say. And this is actually just a double IPA because a little later tonight I didn't want to go too heavy. But this is a classic one they do, Foggy Windows. And this one has... shoot, it's not on the can, but I know it has Citra and Nelson. And anyways, let's see how this batch is. Actually, I'm gonna test it out because I've had this one a few times before, and this one is always super good. Great smell. Oh yeah, that's amazing.
Nice.
That's super good. Yeah, so Monkish in Torrance, LA, if anybody's around there. They also ship within California, so if you live in California, you can get their stuff super easily. I took a break from them for a while, but I decided to get some stuff from them. And shout out to Martin Gonzalez, a fellow photographer that we probably all know of because we featured him on our show, I think in Michael Bellino's episode, yeah.
I did, yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, he helped me get these ones, so thanks, Martin, if you're watching this.
Well, this time I'm going with the lime Spindrift.
That's cool, Mike.
Cool.
All
choice,
right,
a little
next
different.
image.
A little different hop variety.
One thing I didn't say before talking about the previous Alex's photo is I had such a horrible time choosing. There's so much good work being created that I just chose a few things that I had remembered, a few people that I particularly respect, and then a few things I had seen recently on Instagram. So it was really hard.
We understand. That's always the hard
experience.
part for us. And that's why we'll have you on again at some point, so you can share some more stuff. It's definitely won't be the last
You're
time.
assuming I want to relive this experience.
Well, that's what I was gonna say. Granted, you want
Sarah.
to come back, and
Come
Yeah,
on.
I'm gonna mute Eric's texts forever.
It's like a deadline.
Block.
Exactly.
Oh, it's so good.
This is killer, Sarah.
Yeah,
I'd never heard of Alex Kunz before.
No, this is-
He definitely flies under
Look
the
him up.
radar. And
Do you follow him on Instagram, or how do you know about his work?
No, I think he's kind of anti-technology. Like he doesn't like all the terms of service that allow all these companies to repurpose photos. So I don't think he's on anything anymore except for his own website.
That's
And
weird that he doesn't like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, like the rest of us are just like whatever. Hopefully nothing bad happens.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah, fingers crossed that one of my photos doesn't end up on like some Instagram marketing campaign. So Alex is from San Diego, and I don't know quite how I got to know his work, but he's very interested in native plants, and I love plant photography. I've been trying to improve my botany skills, plant ID skills, and I respect his level of knowledge so much. He posts really consistently, and I feel like it's always really good work. This particular photo I chose because it's one of those photos that has stuck in my mind for a long time, because I think that manzanitas are one of the most beautiful trees.
I was gonna
there's
ask if this is
around.
manzanita or what kind of tree it is.
Yeah, it's in.
So is this California, probably?
I'm pretty sure this is around where he lives in San Diego. Some of those mountains. I'm not 100% sure. I should have had the captions ready to be a little more knowledgeable. But I do know that it's a manzanita, and one of the things I love about these trees is that they have so much character, like the color of the bark, the peeling nature of the bark. They can survive drought by having parts of the tree go dormant. So that dormancy process brings a lot of character to the tree. Some of them have incredibly beautiful and delicate little pink blossoms. This particular photo, I've been trying to take something like this for years and never get anywhere close. So I think that's part of the reason it sticks in my mind too. It's a subject that I want in my portfolio and have never gotten anything very good. So if you like plant photography, especially in smaller scenes, landscapes, I would definitely recommend following Alex. I think he does great work.
I love
Yeah, I love the branch all the way on the right. Like the detail that's in that is just phenomenal. I've actually, well, I mean, I'm sure I've seen some photos of these trees before. I've definitely never seen one in real life, but I can see why you're so, drawn to them. So much character.
It's crazy.
Yeah, I love this. It's so good.
The leaves on the bottom, I mean, everything else is just crazy, but the leaves on the bottom remind me of a eucalyptus as well.
Yeah, they're like pale green,
Yeah,
aqua
But
color.
I
I
don't
wonder what they are.
I don't know eucalyptus all that well, so it's
Well, I think it's part of the manzanita. I think we're looking at like the tall, older, more ancient manzanita with the red peeled bark, and then the little ones down at the bottom, I think, are the next generation.
Do you think they're kind of like aspens where they can like spawn? Like the roots are coming up from under the ground and
I'm not sure. I don't know that much about. I know.
I thought we got spawning done early.
Yeah, we did. We covered
Milting.
spawning
Cross that
already.
They're milting.
Sorry, Sarah.
Aren't the leaves of manzanitas also solar trackers? So the thin edge will be pointing at the sun to save on evaporation and things like that.
I didn't know that.
It'll kind of like follow the sun and keep that thin edge oriented towards the sun, at least during the hot season.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's pretty sweet.
what subject do you teach, Michael, in school?
All of them. I do reading, writing, math, social skills, and behavior. So elementary
Okay.
kids. Yeah. Not
And then
science.
Jimmy, you teach environmental science, you said?
Right, yeah. So like a mixture of a lot of different sciences.
So explain this to us.
Yeah, where were you on that, Jimmy?
All of them. Let's go.
It's a tree. It's tremendous. No, I've never seen anything like this. That's really wild stuff. But
I'm gonna go on his website for sure and take a dive into all of his stuff because this looks really promising.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
that shade of green with the red is really wild.
Yeah, like the red bark, the layer of that red bark, I so badly want to touch are those little curls on the red edges? And then obviously the weathered silvery pieces. It's just like there are so many details. And then it looks like there's probably moss growing on some of them. So there's just a lot of little interesting details. And I just love the shape. So well done, Alex.
Yeah,
This
the
doesn't
textures.
seem like a scene that would be easy to photograph either.
Yeah.
Like he found like the one composition that worked probably.
Right.
He goes back to the same places a lot, and which also could be a big part of it is like he'll photograph the same spot over and over in different light, different seasons. So I think his approach to photography is so much based on really knowing his local area super well. And I think that shows in terms of the way he talks about his subjects, the familiarity, that it's a very different approach than I think you commonly see with nature photography today.
It's cool. Yeah, I'm glad you featured his work because somebody I'd never heard of before. So I'm excited to check it out. That's the point of doing this show. Like, apart from just fucking around and having fun, a little too much fun sometimes. Just kind of like, highlighting photographers that might not be getting the recognition they deserve and helping people discover new work because it can be so inspiring and open your eyes to new things. And so, okay, Sarah, so here's a question for you because I understand that you at least somewhat or time to time practice photo celibacy. So did you have to like break that in order to do this episode?
Well, so that was I did it more as a period of time, and we should probably explain what we're talking about since
Based on the direction of the earlier episode.
Yeah,
or the earlier talk,
It means you don't have sex while taking photos, right? Like,
no comment. So Cole Thompson is a Colorado-based black and white photographer, and he has some very exceptional work. Cole is one of the very first people that I heard speak when I was taking up photography. And he talked about his photo celibacy practice. And at the time I was just like, that's such a stupid idea.
was that like an online webinar or in person or?
It was in person. It was like
Where
the
was that?
first camera club. I had some friends who were part of a camera club and they invited
In
me.
Colorado?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Denver, back when I lived in Denver. So this is in the olden days, back in like 2010. So before Zoom presentations. And Cole's idea of photographic celibacy is that if you're constantly filling your mind with other people's ideas, you're never going to find your own. And I know that a lot of people, because I talk about this a lot, and I'd say 90% of people respond with, that's like I did, like that's ridiculous. Like I enjoy looking at photos. I'm not going to take a break, but I'd say probably in like 2015, 2016, I was feeling really dissatisfied with my work. So I decided for about probably 12 to 18 months to really curtail my online activity. And I stopped looking at photos for the most part. And I feel like that's when I found who I wanted to be as a photographer. I started only photographing the things that I was excited about. And I stopped thinking about comparing my work to other people's work or worrying about how it would be received online. And it was a transformational experience for me. So I feel like Cole's guidance in that direction really helped me become a much more confident photographer because I love my work now. So now that I have that confidence, I don't feel the need to do it as much because I don't need the external validation. I can post something on Instagram and it can flop and I don't care. Like I like it. It doesn't matter. So I think that process of that worked then. The photographic celibacy worked super well then. Now, though, I can look at other people's photos and appreciate them and respect them, admire them, and not compare myself to them in the same way. So for this, I don't have that same jealousy or resentment or frustration or judging myself like I used to, because I like my work.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Like, I've always kind of seen the photo celibacy thing as like, I get it, but I think it's kind of silly to take it like super seriously, because I look at photos all the time and I really enjoy it because I get to learn more about different places that I might never travel to. Like in this scene here, I've never photographed months beneath the trees, and so I get exposed to something in nature that I might not be exposed to otherwise, like in my own travels and things like that. So I really love seeing other people's work, but I never feel like, oh my God, that's a great photograph, I need to go replicate that like in this place, or like try to recreate that. Like I never feel any of that at this point. And when I get inspired, yeah, it's not like jealousy or anything like that, or like, oh, I wish I had taken that. Like sometimes I joke around, like, you know, I'm jealous of that, because sometimes I'm like, wow, that looks like such a cool subject matter to photograph. I'm not like jealous about the photograph. I'm just like, that plant or that scene or something looks really cool to explore, and like, you know, I would love to be able to make my own rendition of that kind of thing. But yeah, anyways.
I still do it in terms of travel. Like going to Alaska, I didn't look up anything about Alaska.
Sure.
Because I am very susceptible to other people's ideas, which is why I think Cole's idea resonated a lot with me, because I needed that quiet to hear my own voice. And a lot of people don't need it. Like they are able to do that themselves. I wasn't.
Yeah.
That's a great way to frame it up.
Yeah.
I like that a lot.
Yeah, and to your point, Eric, like I don't know if I'll ever see this tree in my travels. I just don't travel much at all, so it's just so cool to think of like what, you know, if you ran into this, what you would do, or you know,
right.
how can this help me rethink the things that I run into in my own area where I photograph. And
yeah, and like seeing this photo, even though I think it's super cool, I'm not like, oh, I want to go to San Diego and go shoot this, like, so I can have one in my portfolio. I'm like, he already did it. Like, what am I going to offer that is superior to this? Nothing. Like,
yeah,
I kind of
you should try
respect
Mesa
each...
Arch though.
That's the last photo he needed for his book. Like,
that's true, yeah. For the Utah desert book.
Horseshoe
The
Bend.
token Mesa Arch photo.
Yes.
That's gonna be on your tombstone one day, man.
just like a little arch with a little glow right under it.
So Anna has been on the show. This is the third time, I think, now. And as part of this, like, we don't want to tell you like what to feature, what not to feature. So I didn't want to tell you like, hey, Anna's already been on here, choose something else, because that wouldn't be like as authentic. So
I'm constantly seeking out scenes like this where I think of these as beautiful medleys of plants where there's just so much detail and like little pops of color, different shades of green, the little blue-green leaves. I think it's a beautiful composition, and it's one of those photos that I think people walk by these scenes all the time, but I absolutely love finding this kind of scene in nature, which is I think another reason it resonated with me so much. I generally just respect Anna a lot as well, so I really appreciate her work generally. But this particular one, I saw it on Instagram and thought, oh, I really, really want to talk about this one, because I think it's just so beautiful. It's such a beautiful collection of plants. And that's the thing that most resonated with me, is I was just instantly drawn to it. And then once I started looking at it a little bit more deeply, I appreciated all of the little nuances and like the fact that all these things just grow in this little beautiful community together. That I love these moments in nature where you see these in person. I feel like they're one of my favorite things, is finding this kind of pattern or this kind of repetition. And she did it really well. So I wanted to include it.
yeah, this is like simple, but it's deceptive, because once you start looking at it, you're like, okay, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different species, like probably even more than that, represented in this photo of plants. It kind of requires you to spend more time with it to be able to appreciate it. But I really enjoy that, you know, images that aren't overly obvious and require you to think a little bit, and then they engage you because you start thinking more and more as you start to notice more and more things. I was talking with a client the other day about that, and he was saying like how, because he's like a beginner photographer, and he was saying like now he's starting to appreciate scenes that are more nuanced and less obvious, because I feel like you kind of train your eye, and a lot of scenes that are like really great kind of require the viewer to have like a certain kind of eye in order to appreciate them, because the everyday person like isn't going to notice certain things. So I mean, that's like a theme in a lot of your work, Sarah. When do you feel like you kind of developed that, or do you feel like you were always that way, or
What specifically?
like developing an eye for like nuance and yeah, just noticing things that aren't overly obvious and a little more subtle, and like being comfortable with photographing scenes like that might not be appealing to everybody right away.
I think this is an extension of what we were just talking about with the photographic celibacy, because I think I started out there. When I look at my early photos, I was photographing some of the same things. Like one of my first photos was of mud cracks. Before I ever knew what I was doing, the light was horrible. There was no composition whatsoever, but it was something that I was instantly drawn to, that pattern. And then I took a few workshops, and it was with a grand landscape photographer. And I started thinking like, I want to imitate him. He gets so much attention online, and his photos everybody loves him. I want to be like him. And so
Eric Bennett.
Yeah, this was before you were born, Eric. So I was super into that for a while, and that was that phase of dissatisfaction, like that I'm clearly not doing something that's authentic to who I am. And then I think I took that period to say, like, why am I doing photography in the first place? Kind of figured out that answer, and then became more comfortable with my work. So I got back to the same thing that I was doing. And now I think I just have a better eye for composition and light and details and that sort of thing. So it's just an extension of where I started.
Nice.
Cool.
Yeah, such a great image.
Yeah. I was just going to add that shade of like that light gray blue that Anna has in there reminds me of the other one from Alex Kunz, that the leaves of the eucalyptus leaves, or eucalyptus-like leaves. It's just a very calm color tone.
Yeah, I love like aqua brush and leaf stuff. Like,
yeah,
that's one of my favorite colors with plants.
Yeah, like this kind of sage color.
Yeah, like if it was red, like like blueberry in the fall, it would just have a totally different feel to it.
Yeah, great textures and color palette here. I love it.
What was that, Paul? You're on Instagram right now? You got some volumes up or something?
Yeah, I was like, while we're going through these, I like to look up the photographer and just like kind of look at some of their stuff.
You're not following Anna already? Where have you been?
No, I was totally following Anna.
Welcome to the show, Paul.
Come on.
I was totally following Anna, but I went down a rabbit hole.
Isn't it the worst when you're like in bed at night with your wife and like you go on Instagram and one of those videos comes up and the volume's full blast and you're like trying to mute it and doesn't work?
Hey, keep it clean, bro.
Yeah, that's just like one of the most obnoxious things though. Yeah, this is really nice. I'm glad you featured this one.
Yeah.
This one is I feel like it's like liquid, like oil, but it could be like a cloud with like a, I forget what kind of clouds those are called, where they like turn like rainbow colors. Iridescent cloud.
I think so.
Thanks, Michael. That's why he's here.
So what do you guys think the scale is of this? Do you think it's like a little macro subject, or do you think it's bigger?
Macro.
I think this is small.
Yeah, I think it's macro.
Telephoto.
I think
telephoto.
telephoto.
Because of the small details, like the little cracks in it and stuff. That's what kind of makes me think that.
Is this what happens when sunlight hits, salmon?
Jimmy, you need to stop.
I'm just wondering.
Jimmy, you latch onto these things like the anchovy hops and the salmon sperm. It's like
He tries to get
grab
as much
on,
as he
you
can
don't
out
let
of
it
it.
I
go.
said gametes. I didn't.
Jimmy, you gotta put it away. Holster it.
Carolyn Cheng has a lot of amazing work, so I'm glad you featured her. It's about time that she was on the show because yeah, she has a lot of great stuff. But she's kind of known, I would say, for her aerial stuff, like in Western Australia.
Which is why I featured one of her aerials here. This is an aerial.
Oh, this is an aerial?
Are you serious?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
And
Do you
just
know
really
what it
quickly-
is?
I do, and I can talk a little bit about it. For her name, it's Cheng. So if
Yeah, I was
any-
gonna say you spelled it wrong.
yeah.
Well,
So-
that'll be different on the show. So
Okay.
when I edit it and make it all nice and make Mike DiMiola look a lot cuter than he actually is, and
Heavy
Eric,
lifting.
you gotta get your shit together, man.
That's heavy lifting, bro.
So Carolyn
It's all
is-
lighting.
Carolyn is a Canadian photographer, and their COVID restrictions were pretty tight, where doing any international travel or even coming to the US was really challenging. So she was really missing aerial photography, and she decided to go to the oil sands of Canada with an open mind. So not judging it from an oil or from an environmental perspective or from a commercial perspective, just going with an open mind. So she went, hired a pilot, and did a really beautiful collection of abstract aerials of the oil sands in Canada. And some of them they have, I think, more of an environmental message because you can see some of the infrastructure and you get a sense that you're looking at something that's an aerial photograph and that there's something going on. There's another layer there that's not communicated through the photograph. But this one is so full of mystery. It's like, what are you looking at? I think the original or the impression that a lot of people would get if you're familiar with Utah or the Canyonlands of the Southwest, and you see the organic biofilm on scummy ponds, I think that's probably what a lot of people would initially assume. But here we have dappled light, which I'm assuming is the sun shining through dappled clouds on a massive oil slick over a massive landscape.
wow.
And it's beautiful. And it represents
So it's like
environmental destruction.
Walmart parking lot pothole, but like on a much more extensive scale.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's crazy.
That is so
It's crazy.
killer. That's such a great share and find, Sarah.
Carolyn's a great aerial photographer.
She really is.
And she works so hard. I have tremendous personal respect for her in addition to her photography.
This is crazy.
Yeah, her work is really. She's approached that point where you can almost identify whose it is, you know, like just the image. Like, yeah, that's probably Carolyn's.
Is she on the gram?
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah.
She is.
Just not spelled the way Eric did it.
Yeah.
What's the spelling, Eric?
You've been sleeping under a rock, Paul.
Since you really jacked it up. Oh, geez, look at her.
Did I mention the name of this first beer that I opened? It's called Raw Dog in Nature.
I mean, that really set the tone.
That's why I opened it, 'cause it's called Raw Dog in Nature. Yeah, that was super. I don't know if I mentioned that.
We can
It's a
thank
white-
Brent for setting that tone.
I love Sarah calling your ass out.
Yeah.
Sarah, you're now you're on the weekly.
Yeah, Eric, you're fired.
Well,
Yeah,
if
Sarah will be
you-
subbing in for anybody
Yeah,
that
you're-
can make it.
You got my spot. I'm just gonna be a bystander.
Well, I'm glad that I'm able to hang with the men. With Carolyn's work, this oil sands project in particular, she did a solo exhibition in Toronto and had a lot of success with that. She also has the full gallery on her website of all of her oil sands work. So if you find this interesting, I would encourage you to actually go look at the full curated collection of work, because you see, I think the main reaction that I had in looking at it is these are so beautiful and they represent such environmental destruction, and it's really
Right.
hard to disconnect those two emotions, which I think is exactly probably what she was thinking in doing it and how she presented it.
Yeah.
Her
Because they're
stuff is
beautiful
so
abstracts.
good. It's so good. I'm looking at her stuff right now. It is
Yeah, it's insane.
absolutely
Yeah, it's amazing.
Wow, I'm blown away. Really good.
Every image
share.
is incredible from her.
Wow. That's so amazing.
Hey, Sarah, any idea the scale, like how wide of an area we're looking at here? Is there any way to know?
Some of the other photos that she has have some, what I'm assuming is equipment, and they look tiny. So she's from in a plane. I'm not sure how far above the land she is, but she's in a plane of some sort. So I'm assuming it's a fairly big, significant scale, but I don't have the answer.
Wow.
Yeah, this is like some of my little shitty oil photos times 1,000.
But this one's not shitty.
No, absolutely not. No, yeah, it's like it's not like times 1,000 like in the shitty.
All right, Eric. You know what?
Sarah,
Hey,
dude,
Eric, take a lap, dude.
Sarah, you're so in.
He's gonna block my texts now.
No, that's perfect. That's important clarification. That'll keep us from getting kicked off the air.
Yeah, Sarah
Sponsors were about to pull the plug with my comment, and then Sarah saved the day.
She just went to another level.
Actually, that may have just bought us a round of beers on YouTube. Let's see.
Hey, don't we have somebody to thank?
Yeah, shout out to Trevor Velinga for buying us some beers.
Thanks, Trev.
Absolutely.
Cheers, buddy.
Thank you, Trevor.
Yeah, he got us a 4-pack of Jasper.
Nice.
Trevor. Dude,
Yeah,
you were the first.
he's awesome.
But definitely
He's
not
got
the
some great
last.
stuff too. I'm sure he'll be on the show at some point. Oh,
Yep.
all right.
Oh, nice.
That's crazy.
I'm glad you featured this one because Ian has been putting out some amazing stuff lately. Lots of intimate, like pattern stuff, and yeah, I've been wanting to select something, but there's just always so many people to choose from. It hasn't gotten in yet, but
So much good work. out
Eric,
there
did
now.
you include the screenshot that I sent of the full collection?
yes, I did.
Okay, because we could start with that one.
Okay.
Wow.
So
Damn.
this Ian has been, I think, putting out some of the best small scenes and abstracts of coastal subjects and other things recently. I think he's doing some incredibly wonderful work, but I wanted to focus on this Burke project instead, because I thought that it's a great example of where a collection of photographs elevates the individual the individual photographs. So I think that my favorite one is probably the number one, and I'm assuming it's potentially his favorite too, since he chose it to be the lead photograph for the series. And I just love all the little intricate details. So we could go back and talk about that one more specifically, but I did want us to just take a look at the full collection to see how I think careful curation, where there's diversity in this collection. So it's all a similar subject, but the compositions are different. It seems like the scale is a little bit different, the colors and textures. So there's enough visual diversity that I think it feels like an interesting viewing experience, and the collection as a whole together amplifies the idea. So that's why I wanted to talk about this as a collection in addition to just the single photo.
Yeah, I'm really glad you shared
absolutely.
this as well because it's totally worth seeing. This is on his website.
Yeah.
So you usually release your work in galleries or like sets of images. Do you tend to choose your favorite photo for the first one, or how do you pick the first image of your galleries?
I think generally I try to put my favorites a little bit earlier, but not necessarily. I think I'm going more for kind of a mixed viewing experience where it's highs and lows, like a little bit of a pause. I have a really hard time curating my work tightly, which I think is probably one of my flaws as a photographer. I think I wish I could channel my inner Alex Noriega a little bit more often, but I just can't. So maybe when I release my next body of work, I'm going to try to keep it to 30 photos or something like that. So no, I don't necessarily choose the one I like the best. I more try to flow with color, that it's more, or season. If I'm doing a multi-season, that that's my theme, is more like greens flow into blues, flow into purples and pinks, and those flow into oranges and yellows. So I curate a lot more by color and light.
Because I feel like it's also important, like it's important to start strong with one of your favorite images, but I feel like it's also important to end on a good note as well. So I always try to like save one of my favorites for like the last image or like those last three. Yeah, I was just curious about that. But yeah, this one is crazy. It's like it looks like it's like driftwood, but it's like spaghetti. Like it doesn't look solid. And yeah, I remember seeing this one a while ago. So when you shared this one, it just like brought it back to my mind when I had first seen it.
And I'm assuming it's absolutely tiny. So he had to be looking very carefully for this. And then he probably saw it and felt so excited because this is such a cool subject. But I just have really loved his work. And so I wanted to feature something from him and felt like, since this is another one of those photos that stuck in my mind a little bit, that I thought this one would be good to talk about.
You killed it. This is so
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
This is so
Such an
good.
awesome image.
Yeah, and I love the fact that you included the complete set. It just makes it that more amazing. But this one is the one. Well done, Sarah.
Thanks for
sharing it.
I love the subtle light on it too.
Yeah.
That little
Good
man.
point.
Wow.
It didn't ask questions. Like, I want to know why those swirls formed and like
Right.
what decayed the black spaces in between. Like, my mind wants to know more about the subject matter itself, which is when an image does that, it's definitely a very successful image in my mind.
He didn't provide any context in what I've read. Maybe he did on Instagram, but at least on his website, it's the titles of the photos and then the title of the collection. So it's like, where was this? Are we looking at driftwood? Are we looking at opinion? Are we looking at a cottonwood? Like there's just, it definitely raises those questions. And I want to know more too, Mike.
Yeah.
I totally agree
Yeah.
with that.
Yeah.
And I found it interesting that he, when the larger the collection was shown, like some of them he gave small bits of details and some he chose not to give any information at all. And I kind of appreciate that. You know, like we feel like he needs to give some information to let the viewer have some sort of insight to what was shown. But then he kind of didn't feel the need to pair words with an image at every single step of the way, because words can influence the viewer's take on an image, and sometimes they're just not needed. For me, at least.
Right.
Completely agree.
So do you know where he's out of? Because it's described as like an oak tree, but there's also like eucalyptus in that same collection.
Oh, I didn't realize it said oak, that it was an oak.
He's from like Central California, like Santa Cruz maybe, or
Yeah, his IG says connecting deeper to the California landscape
Okay.
through photography.
So he just has it labeled as a small part of fallen, decaying oak.
Okay.
I've been following him since like I first got into photography, so I'm really glad that you featured one of his images because
Yeah.
he's been
His stuff
constantly
is
doing great
fantastic.
stuff.
It seems like he's been exploring coastal rock abstracts and finding so many crazy things, like things that
Yeah.
I've never seen before, lots of optical illusions. It seems like he has a fresh take on subjects we see a lot of. So I
Totally.
think that's what I've enjoyed about his work.
Yeah, and before he was kind of doing like wide angled seascapes of like Big Sur and stuff, and like kind of northern Central California, and then he's been slowly getting more and more intimate, which I've really enjoyed seeing his like evolution and exploration, and his work has become more personal, I feel like. And the lighting in this one is really interesting too. It's like reflected light. It looks like it's really glowy, and there's like a warm, cool color contrast, and that also plays a big part in making this one super interesting to look at.
Yeah, like the light on the swirls.
Mhm.
Probably, like if it was more flat light, would they stand out as much?
Right. Yeah, it's like nice contrast, but not too heavy.
I think that this is also a good example, just the things that we're talking about here for people that are starting maybe to do this kind of photography, like those little nuances of things like just a little bit of reflected light on those patterns brings them to life. So it's those kinds of little details that once you start thinking about them, that's when your work starts standing out, I think, more. Because that's something I've seen in his work, that he has attention to detail. He works well with a whole variety of different kinds of light. He's his compositions are always really solid. So it's like everything is refined. So I think that's part of what's made his work stand out to me.
Do you have a favorite kind of lighting to shoot in, Sarah?
There's nothing such as good or bad light. I am happy just being outside and can find opportunities regardless.
Okay.
Were you going for something?
No,
Good answer.
I would say the same thing in like a webinar or something, but like if I'm talking to my friends, I would probably say like reflected light or like dappled light. Like that really gets me excited like every time.
I was being honest.
Okay.
Like I'm
Yeah,
honest.
I
with my
have this like
webinars.
persona that I
So
Anyways.
I know that Jason I think is a repeat too, but
Yes, yeah.
I feel like he deserves it because he's been doing some great work too.
Yeah.
So
go ahead.
all of us and also some friends have been making bets on like who will do the best in the NLPA competition this year. So we've each bet a certain amount of money, and then whoever does the best will win. Jason Pettit is my pick. So I really love his work, and I think he's got phenomenal stuff. So
I would love to know more about that bet. That's fascinating.
who would you bet on? I mean, you have to know who entered or not, but
Well, I was a judge for 2 years, so I'm not a judge this year. So I have a little bit more insight into the process, which means like I would have a little bit of an unfair advantage. I don't want to say names out loud.
okay.
Context.
Well, if you want to get in on the action, I'll text you after the episode. And
I'll
We'll send you his
unblock you.
bookies info.
Yeah, exactly.
It's all about the beer too. You know that money is going right towards that.
There's an over/under cooking.
Do you know that he entered for sure?
I'm pretty sure he did. I mean,
I
he
would assume
placed
so.
like third place, I think, or second place last year. So I figure
Very high,
he's
yeah.
doing it again. I feel like he's into it.
Yeah. His work from the previous year has just been, we talked about like summer doldrums. Mike, you were talking about summer doldrums a bit, and I know Jason ran into that too, but he kind of muscled through it. But the images he was kicking out over the summer were really just like very inspiring.
Isn't it
You
funny
can
how
call it
summer
what it
is
was,
like,
Jimmy. I was whining.
No. I was talking about Mike Bellino.
Yeah. Oh.
Isn't it funny
Well, I
how
was
summer
whining
is
about
like
it all summer
the
too.
best season
Well,
of the
those
year
spindriffts
for
are hitting hard, man.
the rest of the world? Summer is like the best time of the year, and then for photographers, it's like downtime. Like
Yeah.
I'm staying at home. I'm not doing anything.
Yep.
Unless you're in the
I didn't catch it.
mountains.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you can backpack into the mountains like Paul and I, our trip was amazing.
Yeah,
That's
true.
A lot more
Maybe
effort.
hit the coast or something. Around here, I don't know about Mike for you, but I get like chewed alive by like various and sundry of bugs.
Black flies.
It's unbelievable. You just get pounded.
Do you want me to talk about this one now?
Thank you.
Yeah. Sorry. Go ahead.
Sorry.
That was about to take an ugly turn, so yeah, definitely let's start talking about the photo.
Now back to Sarah and some actual photography.
Yeah.
I
Sorry.
picked a few of these because I wanted to make a point. And the point with this one is that experimentation and working with harsh light, like difficult light, can sometimes result in really cool photographs. And I like the fact that he's an open-minded photographer who's like, I'm going to try working just with silhouettes of this, what looks kind of like a thistle. And I think the shapes are so cool. And I think it caught my eye instantly because it was different. It was bold. And all of those things came together really nicely. And I also think working with a subject like a thistle or whatever this was, this plant, that it's a worthy subject. You don't have to have epic conditions in an epic location. that you can experiment with this type of subject and create a really compelling photograph. And that was the reason that I chose this one, because I think it's a lot of people would walk by this and be like, oh, that weed, like, why is this in my landscape?
Well, and also like this time of day, like super harsh lighting, people are like, oh, not shooting, like that's bad light. Because you can tell like from the natural, like you can, like maybe he darkened the shadows a little bit, but you can tell like the natural lighting here was pretty harsh, and there were really strong highlights and really strong shadows, like high dynamic range here, but he didn't shy away from it.
He's breaking all the conventions, the things that you're supposed to do, all the stupid rules that you hear. And I think that's good. And I wish more people were doing it. Like I like the open-mindedness that I see in his work.
Mm-hmm.
And you definitely underexpose the image and let the shadows go to full black and expose for the highlights, which is perfect. You know, what a great choice. I think it's fascinating how the stems are these series of dots, these vertical or angled dots. They kind of,
they're not like solid lines.
It's just
It's
so
implied lines.
It's like after the initial looking at those seed heads or where they are, then you start noticing those stems, and it just elevates the image for me. I wouldn't have shot like this at all.
No, you wouldn't have probably.
Yeah, that's that's me.
When I saw this image a while back, it reminded me a little bit of Krista McEwish, where she often kind of, I think, sometimes works things indoors, brings things indoors, and kind of works with the light and composition there to great effect. But I realized Jason didn't do that with this one, so just really I was trying to figure out for the longest time how he imaged this one.
Yeah, I think it's just like really harsh backlight, and that just kind of allowed him to leave those shadows really dark and brighten the highlights and increase the dynamic range a little bit. But I think it's kind of naturally there just with the way a camera sensor captures this kind of lighting.
But it still seems like there had to be something, like the background had to be dark. So like it's seeing the opportunity of where having the dark background makes these stand out, because without the dark background, it would be a totally different photograph.
And it's interesting how like all the flowers or whatever they are like in threes, like these kind of prongs of threes like throughout the scene.
So plants are worthy subjects for nature photographers.
Who would have thought?
For sure.
Who would have thought?
Preach it.
Yep. Absolutely.
The snark is starting to come out. Sarah's almost done with her cider.
Yeah, she's about time. Sarah's heating up.
She needs to crack another one open.
Yeah.
Oh,
So this was the other one I chose for the little like lecture about. So I was speaking to a camera club recently, and somebody asked me, like, why are your photos so light and bright? Like, it feels like you're like implying that I'm doing something wrong with my processing. And
They asked you that, like
yeah,
kind of like challenging you?
not challenging me, but more, I think, confused. Because the way that you present landscape photography is that it's high contrast, it's dark, vibrant colors.
Yeah, like
And
low key.
If you're not doing that, like there's something wrong with you. Like you aren't seeing colors properly, or like that I'm making a mistake. Like I don't know what I'm doing. I think that was kind of the implication of, oh, you aren't getting your colors right. You need to do a little bit more work here. And the reason I picked this photo is because, first of all, it's an icon. So it's the Tarn in Acadia. And so I wanted to make that point of.
Wait, so there's like the Tarn in Acadia?
Yeah.
Because I've seen
The
like lots of
Tarn.
photos from like Mike DiMiola, Colleen Miniak, also other ones from John. But there's like one Tarn, like it's the
Yeah.
Tarn.
It's called,
The Tarn.
there are other Tarns, but this one is called the Tarn.
Okay. Wow,
And
I
it's
didn't
not
know.
really
Because I've
even
never
a
been out in that
tarn.
area.
It's not what we in the Mountain States think of as a Tarn. It's like huge.
It's like a swamp.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
kind of like a swampy wetland area called the Tarn. So first, it's an icon. It's roadside, not that hard to get to. but I still think that it's worth photographing icons like this because it's such a cool scene. I like that John photographed it in the winter. He's been doing, I think, a lot of really nice work from Acadia where he's pushing it, where he's showing the park with a lot more nuance than I think I have seen from other photographers. So I really have been enjoying that about his work. But this one in particular, I chose both because I really like the photo, but I also think it represents that annoyance that I felt during this recent Camera Club presentation because he's presenting this. It's that they're pink, very light pinks and blues. He didn't choose to crank the blacks down and have a lot of contrast. It's like these are all very intentional decisions. Like the winter mood, that kind of light winter light, that those are all intentional decisions. And I appreciate that he presented this in a light, bright feel. And that it's a totally valid expression and these of how he experienced the scene. And I get really tired of hearing that you need to have high contrast, really vibrant colors. Like because I do light and bright work and I hear this sometimes and I find it really frustrating. I find the closed-mindedness frustrating. So I wanted to show this photo from John as an example of where that light, bright feel works, I think, really, really well. So I'll step off my soapbox.
Well, no, because like everything is very congruous here. Like I would never think like, oh, he processed it wrong according to the lighting or the scenery. So
No.
I totally agree with everything that you said just there. And I think it was last year I did a critique group with Rachel Talabart, and a term that she like repeatedly mentioned during the critique group was like, that's very camera clubby. And I really liked that because it's like perfect. Like, you know, like, oh no, it's really camera clubby to like have the lines coming in from the corners, or like, you know, just those like typical like cliche rules that we hear all the time.
Mhm.
They're not actually rules. Like there are no rules in art, and it's really important to like discern for yourself, you know, what you need to do for the scene and how you need to treat it and everything in post-processing and composition and all that. So yeah, no, I totally agree with you, Sarah.
Yeah, and I love how, like you said, it's an iconic spot, but how do you take an iconic spot and make it different, make it unique, and
Make it your own.
Exactly, you shoot it when I've never seen the Tarn in the winter. The time to shoot it is in the fall because there's a big mountain that goes up behind it, and there's a bunch of birch and stuff on there that you know, have like a lot of yellow foliage on it in the fall, and that's how you get that reflection on the water that you know, Sarah was kind of talking about, that kind of higher contrast, kind of the more traditional ones that look the same as, you know, every other one, including the ones I shot, look just like all the other photos from the Tarn. But, you know, I love how he did it in the winter. He went there in the winter and, you know, a little contrast. And again, Sarah, as you said, just kind of capture that winter feel. And I myself too am just more and more drawn to this kind of lower contrast, lighter, brighter type of photography. There's another photographer that kind of recently discovered that's doing similar work. I'm blanking on her name right now. It'll come to me later. But yeah, I agree. I love this image, and I love how it's an icon shot in a very unique way.
Are you talking
Yeah, I would
about
have never
Michelle's
guessed.
sons?
Yes, very good.
But Michelle was like one of the people I wanted to feature, but
Yeah,
It's hard.
Yeah, so it's kind of
She's doing
reminiscent of
great
her
work.
work.
yeah.
Yeah, she really is.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm impressed, like hearing that this is an icon, because I don't know, icons out here are so different than this. Like,
But like I think what Mike was describing, that's the icon. It's when the light is reflecting,
Yeah,
and you get the combination of the reeds and the light reflecting. And I personally think this is a much prettier version of it. I don't like that light. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just my personal judgment. I prefer.
hey, you just said that you like all kinds of light when I asked you like 10 minutes
No,
ago.
the difference is that I'm happy to photograph under any particular condition, but I have very specific ideas about what colors go well together. And my impression of like this kind of greenish yellow light reflecting onto kind of reddish reeds, because they're a little bit more red in the autumn. I don't personally, so everybody listening to this who I've just offended, I personally don't like that color combination. So I went there in the fall, I photographed it, I didn't like it. It's not the colors that I like together. And I think that's another part of finding out who you are as a photographer is like, what colors do you like? Like in this particular situation, I like this presentation a lot better than what's kind of considered the icon.
Well, luckily
So-
only like 30 people watch this show, so you've only offended like maybe 5 or 2.
Okay, that's good.
Drops.
This one's pretty crazy. I can't tell if it's like in front of water or
That's
I don't
super
know,
cool.
but the trees are super unique. You don't see these kinds of trees all the time.
I think it's definitely water.
Yeah,
I think
like a lake or
the zoom
something.
is the quality is a little off on the zoom, and I think in the full version you can see a little bit of texture in the water.
Okay.
Just in general, I think Lizzie Shepherd is doing some really fantastic work right now. I think going back to that idea of classic landscape photography, I think her ground landscapes are just very, very tasteful. They're well balanced. Her composition skills are top notch. I think she is skilled at photographing kind of complex scenes in a way that makes them look more minimalist. So there's still a lot going on, but I think they come across as feeling harmonious and calming. And I think she has a really nice way of working with light and color. I think probably appeals to me in part because it has some of that little bit lighter and brighter feel. This one I was drawn to because it has both an abstract feel and the subject is very obvious. And I like the fact that we know it's trees, but all the curving lines. So we have the structure of the main chunks and then all the little fine detail and all the branches and then that beautiful blue background that it all comes together, I think, really beautifully.
Yeah, I'd never heard of her before, and I just pulled up her Instagram account. Looks like she's based in North Yorkshire, UK. She has a really great feed, so I instantly followed her. But she's got lots of variety and lots of different kinds of incredible scenes in here. So I'm glad you featured her.
Her stuff's awesome.
Yeah, it's not only like we want to expose the people that watch this show to new photographers, but also we learn about new photographers, especially when we have guests on here. So yeah, she's got some great stuff.
And ever so often we expose ourselves to the people.
Yeah.
Mike.
How do you feel like you find new photographers usually, Sarah? Just like on Instagram, like recommendations, or?
No, I've got to know of Lizzie's work through Twitter, I think, and that's one of the saddest things about the decline of Twitter, because the UK photographer community used to be incredibly active. So you follow a couple of photographers from the UK and then they retweet stuff or re-X stuff. I don't know where we're even supposed to call Twitter anymore. But they would share things. And then, so I started following all of these photographers from the UK, and it's such a different experience than following photographers from the US. It feels like the community feels a little bit more supportive in some ways. Maybe just because it's a smaller geographic area, they maybe have more common experiences than we do. But I think just generally, that's how I found out about a lot of UK photographers, was just by following a bunch of them on Twitter. Now I kind of feel like I know so many photographers who are doing such exceptional work and I don't have time to appreciate it, that I kind of have a hard time putting in anyone new, because I want to appreciate the people that I follow a little bit more than I do now.
Yeah, I'm pretty picky with my feed, and every once in a while I'll go through and like unfollow people that I don't know, if I'm just not connecting with their work or something. But yeah, I try to keep it like pretty curated, because otherwise like you go on there and you see kind of random stuff and it's like, I don't know, not the best experience you could have. But yeah, no, she's got some great stuff, so I'm glad you featured her, because I'd never heard of her before.
So I really, really love this.
It's a really diverse. I mean, the color toning is all is tight, which is nice to me. But it's a really diverse group of subjects that she's
Mike.
pointing.
You think
Mikey
What?
D. This would be a killer fucking print.
It would be.
Yeah. Yeah. Look good on my wall.
I mean, really a big image. This would be great.
Well, by the time I'm done, it would have to be, I don't know what the ratio is here, but it'd have to be like postcard size because I don't have a lot of wall space. So, Eric, by the way, when you made that comment about like, I hope you like it because it's going to be on your wall, I thought that's what you were like busting my balls about, and then I realized it was it's one of the ones that was in the book thing that I bought.
Yeah, you ordered that.
That's why I wrote back to you, and I was like, oh yeah, thanks. Like you were just sending me the print, and I was like, oh, you actually are sending me the print, but I actually bought it from you.
You ought to know you bought it.
I know.
You bought it, son.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sarah,
I definitely recommend looking at her feed. I mean, it's really,
Yeah, it's incredible.
really, really nice.
Sarah came with some shit tonight.
Yeah, coming in.
I know,
hot.
way better than Michael
She came in,
Bellino's.
dude. She came
She
in.
totally showed me
She
up.
came
Absolutely.
in. She came in hot. Damn.
Can we pull down that last episode? Sorry.
It's got a line through it.
I mean, I really set the bar so low that,
We knew you would.
Dude. Sarah,
And by the way, we're only
No,
mildly offending the photographers that Mike put up.
Mike had a lot of great selections. I really
did,
enjoyed
he
a
did.
lot of them.
no, I did. They were all fantastic.
They were awesome, yeah.
They're
They really
amazing.
were.
Yeah, definitely.
I think they're different than your selections, which is so great about having different guests on, is just seeing as a whole how the selections may vary between guest to guest to guest.
You're acting like there's a future to this show, Michael. Like you're
There's a
expecting.
bright future. Very bright future. Go be optimistic.
We have Lick lined up for number 10, so.
Michael's
Wait.
Michael's cock blocking Sarah right now. He's like, no, she's not taking my spot.
I have no comment on any of that.
That's probably wise.
He's like,
It's good policy.
nah, I'm just gonna like.
This is
Are you
crazy.
serious?
God, I love this image. I
Wow.
love this image.
Jesus, are you kidding me
Yeah,
right now?
Sigfrido has some amazing stuff. He's a marine biologist in LA. And I guess he likes to shoot kelp a lot because he has lots of great kelp photos. And I think I heard in his his interview with Matt Payne, that he really enjoys shooting kelp. And I'm glad he does because his photos of it are excellent and very unique.
Yeah, I chose one of his photos for my favorite for the first year of the NLPA competition, which is, I think, maybe where I learned of his work. Maybe I knew of it before, but every time he shares one of his photos of kelp, I would so love to photograph. I think this is another example of where I absolutely love the subject myself, and then seeing a photographer do it so well. And maybe it's because he loves the subject that it comes through in his work. But the colors here, the pattern, the little detail, the pattern in the kelp or the seaweed, I'm not sure exactly what the species is here. But then the little nuances of light on the water, I think it's an example of a photo where at first you look at it and you see the pattern, but then you start looking a little bit more deeply and you see all these little interesting details. So the overall effect, I think, is positive in terms of the color and the composition, but then I love all the little gifts for looking closer. So I absolutely love this series of his work, and just think it's exceptional in terms of patterns of sea life. And this one was one of my favorites.
Yeah, it's a really cool image. I've been the first time I saw it, I've come back to it a couple times just because it was so, I don't know, it's just such a striking image. I love how balanced it is. Just really well done.
That's crazy.
And I'm glad you pointed out those highlights on the water. I think a lot of people may try to polarize those out, but they add so much to the image in my eyes. I'm keeping those like brighter highlights on the water.
Yeah, the slight glare.
Yeah, it's so good.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can tell that there's dappled light on here because that some of the bits of the seaweed are in light and some look like they're in a little bit more shadow, and that brings some texture to it. So if it was flat light, polarized, the water was polarized, it might still be a cool photo, but it might not feel quite as dynamic.
Agree.
Yeah, as you were saying that, Mike, I'm looking at another image of his with kelp, but he very carefully managed the texture of the water with the kelp, and it's just there's several of these. Just that's really cool.
It's it complements.
Yep,
Love it.
man, it looks like gold.
His work's so
Wow.
killer and creative.
I actually found out about him because he signed up for a portfolio review with me, and that was like one of those moments where I felt like inadequate because I was like, dude, you got great stuff. Like, what am I gonna tell you? Like, how am I gonna help you improve any of this? And but yeah, I was just really grateful to get to know him and find his work through that.
Yeah, it's a lot of really amazing botanical stuff too.
I think somebody bet on him in our group for the NLPA.
If they haven't, I'll take them.
Yeah.
I got dibs. His shit is real, dude. I love it.
Yeah, it's a really great image. Glad you featured this one, Sarah.
Yeah, thank you, sir.
sure.
I hadn't actually been familiar with his work. I was just instant fan.
I love it.
And I think this concludes your choices. And now, what is this one? What the heck? Who shot this one? This is an
Damn.
amazing photograph.
Man,
Damn, where'd this come from?
Dang.
SM.
Damn.
So this is one of my favorites of your portfolio, Sarah. I don't know. I just always come back to this one. Maybe because it's like the tree scene, like the mossy backlit tree scene that I wish I would photograph one day, and I just haven't yet. It just always sticks in my mind. But yeah, tell us a little bit about this one. Anything interesting to share?
We went to Cannon Beach specifically to find wintry trees under this light. And it was a lot harder because we had been around the Oregon coast in the winter. And one of my main observations, we were just passing through pretty quickly. And one of my main observations is like, why am I not seeing this?
We as in you and Peter Lick.
Me and my husband, Ron, who we had the marriage therapy session earlier, that same person. So we had been just like passing through in the winter. And my main reaction, and this is not to offend any of the Pacific Northwest photographers sitting here, Paul's gone.
Michael Bellino
What?
and Paul Bowman.
But, yeah, it's like, why haven't I
Earmuffs.
seen this before? Why aren't people photographing these? Because these trees in winter are incredible. Like without leaves, the structure of the trees just looks so cool. So we decided to make a trip to look for these scenes, like actually spend time driving the back roads, hiking, and trying to find scenes like this. And it ended up being a lot harder than I thought it would be. And then we just had just a few minutes of really nice light, and the flat light does not work at all. It looks so much messier. Like just the little rims of light totally transform this scene.
Yeah, because like with even light, everything is like equally accentuated. Whereas here, like you have the simplification from the backlight, just highlighting the rim,
yeah.
like the edges of the mossy trees. Is the background like kind of far away? That's why it's in the shade. Like, is it like a?
Yeah,
Are you in like a
trees,
canyon
and then
or
it was
something?
a little taller. Yeah, it wasn't quite a canyon, but it was definitely kind of an upsloped area that was further behind. And then that area was totally in shade. So this was light coming through clouds,
Okay.
not like poking over a mountain or anything like that.
Oh,
So
interesting.
it was changing pretty rapidly. And this, I had to balance the light a little bit. It was a little harsher on the left side than the right side. So I did a little bit of light balancing and then darkening the background a little bit. The thing that was most memorable about this scene, though, is that there was a dead elk like in the ravine. And that's the main thing that I can think about when I think about this. I love the photo. I'm so glad that I had the light. It's one of my favorite from my portfolio, but oh my gosh.
It makes you
the
think of
most
a
pleasant.
rotting, stinking
Dead elk.
carcass.
Carcass.
Yeah, so it wasn't the most pleasant experience.
Okay.
but the light was good enough that it's like, we're staying.
I'm going to give some backstory here, Sarah. This dirtbag Bennett, like literally 6 weeks ago, when we mentioned your name, he's like, "This is my photo." And we're like, bro, who we having on the show? He totally flexed on us. He's like, "Hey, I got this one already. You guys gonna have to figure
Back
it
off."
yourselves."
Yeah,
And I'm
like,
like, "You
put a
suck."
fork in our hand.
I'm like, "You suck so hard, dude." I mean, I'm like looking at this going, "This is such a sick image. I know why he claimed it so soon. I love it, and the fact that you totally killed it. Like that, there's noise in the background, but it's so secondary, and the light, and man, it is so good. You absolutely killed this.
There
These
are
things I need to darken. Looking at it now.
no. Don't touch this photo. Do
need to
not do
stop.
anything to this.
You need
Okay.
to stop, Sarah.
Ridiculous.
There are few photos I'd describe as perfect, and this is one of them. Like just because I photographed this kind of subject matter so much, like so extensively, it's so difficult to find anything that comes near to this. Like,
Yeah.
The one that you guys showed last week of the light beams coming in.
Michael Bolinos?
No,
Patrick McDonald?
yeah, Patrick McDonald.
Oh,
Yeah. His is way better than mine.
Mike has some great. Yeah, you have some great stuff too, though. Of this.
But I agree, it's so hard to encounter. It's so hard to find in these forests. I mean, wintertime especially because there's not a lot of light. But yeah, like this image is like an incredible example of what you can do with time and patience, but also like your ability to kind of find these scenes as you're driving down the coast, like looking for them is just, I mean, that just speaks to your expertise as a photographer as well.
Yeah, we drove all the back roads around Tillamook and Cannon Beach looking for this, and I guess I just thought in my mind like it was going to be so much easier.
Yeah.
It took a lot more effort than I thought.
I've driven a lot of roads through the Coast Range and around the coastal areas as well, and there's so much clear cutting there that it's so frustrating to find anything.
what was it that inspired you to like visualize this or like even look for this? Was it somebody's photograph, or like what made you even think this was like possible to find?
I think it was driving through because when we first encountered this, or well, Ron lived in the Pacific Northwest, so he had seen it before. But like this was the first time, or the trip before this was the first time I had seen these bare moss-covered trees, and I was instantly attracted to them. It's like I
These
have to
are
come back.
big leaf maples, right?
Yeah. Well, like,
Or
and then
pine
there are
maples?
alders and some other things.
Maybe an alder.
So the forest is mostly big leaf maples, alders, and then some other smaller stuff on the ground.
Aren't the alders like they were brought here, like they were planted? Are they not native?
That's a Paul and Mike Volino
I
question.
don't know, possibly.
I think I read that they're not native to the Pacific Northwest.
What time of day?
Fact check.
Sarah, what type of day?
Midday.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's not allowed, Sarah.
Hey,
I
It's
can
a
just
rule.
leave my camera.
I thought it was sunrise.
hey, you shut up.
Yeah. So I think we were lucky because on that particular day it was the kind of sun coming in and out of the clouds, so that allowed a little bit of that rim lighting.
Yeah, you killed it.
Thank you.
Great.
Yeah, I used this one as our session graphic for our critique group that we did.
Yeah.
Earlier this year. Yeah.
So
year.
it doesn't surprise me that you chose this one because I knew you liked it.
Yeah, I'm a fan. I've
And
talked
it's
to you
an
about
easy-
this one.
And it's an easy read. Ooh.
Oh, is this mine?
That's an
What
interesting.
do you mean, is this
choice.
yours? You should know.
Come on, man.
It's a rhetorical question.
Nice.
Yeah. So like for Sarah, like your work has so much diversity in terms of subject matter. You have just some amazing classy and elegant grand landscapes. You have some amazing forest scenes, but obviously you have an incredible collection of macro and really shallow depth of field work with plants and other sort of like plant life. And this one is great. Actually, I don't remember seeing this one before. And it's one reason why I wanted to select it, because it's kind of fun to find new images of these photographers whose work I kind of know fairly well. And the sense of openness, again, it's bright, it's light, it's open. the detail which is focused on is perfect. There's little water dew droplets on the edges of, I believe, is this a flower or what kind of plant is this exactly?
I think it's actually an ornamental cauliflower
Got it.
or cabbage. It's either a
Oh,
cauliflower.
really? Okay.
Hmm.
Okay, great.
You
Yeah, I
you
think-
use that app a lot, right? That like identifies plants and flowers.
Yeah, Seek. I can see if
Seek.
Seek probably won't do very well with this because it's so the shallow depth of field.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not.
I feel
doing
like if for people who know your work, this kind of genre of photography is I think you have an incredibly strong collection of it, and I think it's important to kind of showcase for sure in this show. And I could have chosen any number of images of yours, but this one just kind of really spoke to me, like the purple fringing and how like the focus is so perfect that the background leaves on the top left and the bottom right, like they're still discernible, but they're kind of fading into the abyss behind. And then the beyond that is just open space and just kind of very vague, amorphous shapes and colors. It just works so well to me.
well, thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, what do you have to say about that, Sarah?
That it's fun to listen to people say nice things about my work. So thank you.
Can I tell one story really fast? So my family and I saw Sarah, I think summer of 2021 in her town in Colorado. And it's my wife and my son who I always do a lot of traveling with. And like I told my wife, like, hey, like, I really appreciate Sarah's work. She's one of my favorite photographers. So we knock on her door for like dinner, which was so great and delicious. And my wife's like, yeah, so my husband thinks you're like one of the best photographers out there. I'm like, just like I'm a fanboy, but you don't have to say it out loud. Just kind of like play it cool, Betsy, you know?
Tone it down. Come on.
Tone it down. Come on, try and be like, you know, cool here and everything. But I think, Sarah, you know how much I appreciate your work and the like how prolific you are and the diversity and how you're thinking around photography. I really appreciate. And I've known you for a while now. I know we've anyway, I just want to make sure that you know that I really appreciate all your work. And whenever you post something or write something, I always make sure that I do try to find it and read it for sure.
That's so kind of you, Mike. I feel the same about your work. I think you, with your work in particular, like some of your stuff from Death Valley, like you were there for such a short time and you came away with some absolutely fantastic photos. And you travel so little, like you have all the other obligations and you're instantly back on your game.
Yeah.
And that's something that, like, I feel like I do this so much. I work so hard and I still am not anywhere near what I want to be. And then there are people like you where you drop in and it's just like instantly good. And so that's something in your work that I don't have at all.
Well, thank you. But then I looked at your work, I'm like, oh my gosh, like there's no way I can get to that point. Also, I'm just following Paul around Death Valley anyway, so it's all like me just following his coattails and.
Come on, bro. I'm just comp stomping you.
Anyway, I love this image. It's amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah, everyone was really excited to have you on the show, Sarah. Even though Mike and Jimmy and Paul are being kind of shy, but yeah, they were definitely
Don't be shy. What are you talking
panning
about?
out.
I feel like I've dominated the conversation too much.
No, not at all. That's
Not
the
at
point
all.
of having you on.
That is
We want you to
100%
talk
the
more
point.
than anybody.
Well, Eric
That's
will edit
exactly
out
what I
most of it.
said after my episode. I was like, I feel like I dominated everything. I was like over talking, and Eric said the same thing. Like that's the point of having you on to kind of discuss things and hear your perspective. So
Yeah. Except
Okay.
Sarah is like way better to listen to than you, but
she's much more articulate, for sure.
True story. And she's got better behind the scenes photos.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh yeah.
No question.
Well, that's your fault, Paul. That's on you, dude. We've done so many trips
like-
together. That's on you.
I know.
like the water
It's a bit of
droplets
some
on this
shit.
one, they're not pee, they're
No.
actual water droplets from the
okay.
rain. So
They're absolutely great.
I don't know.
We need some DNA.
That's my least favorite comp stomps meme. Speaking of comp stomps, Sean Bagshaw and one of his friends stopped by this morning, and there was an extensive discussion about who comp stomps is.
oh really?
Yeah.
That's
Is this
funny.
public
I guess
knowledge or
nobody
no?
will ever find out.
Nobody will ever find out.
I wonder who it is.
I wonder too.
Weird.
He's mysterious.
He
Mystery.
thought it was Ron.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
Ron's pretty funny. Could be Ron.
Anyway.
When we have Ron on the show, we'll grill him about it. We'll really get into it
Yeah.
and try to get it out of him.
Well, like I love comp stomps. I think it's funny. I like how you just the account just like slices through the.
Oh, dude, it's
Wait,
it's total savage.
Rewind.
It just cuts you deep. It's just like,
I love how the comp stomps account just cuts to the bone, kind of ruthlessly, but in a funny way.
yeah.
And the P one though, every time I see it, I hate it. I hate it. I absolutely hate it.
Oh, God.
Why do you hate it?
Because I love water droplets and it has ruined it for me.
So every time you see water droplets, you
Water
suspect that
droplets,
it's
I think of,
piss.
oh, that's some dude peeing on his scene.
Well, it worked.
Oh, that's amazing.
So whoever's behind that account has ruined it for me. We're ruined those water droplets. So thank you very much.
We'll
You
get
should
to
be
the bottom
really
of
be
it at some
ashamed.
point. What if it's Ron and you don't know? What if he's been doing this behind your back the whole time?
Well, that would
Dude.
be, yeah.
Dude.
What kind of marriage problems does that cause?
Oh, here we go. Here we go.
Yeah, but-
Bennett, chapter 7. Flip the page.
Ooh.
Oh, shit.
Oh,
God.
yeah. Oh,
Quit.
The Mud Crack Queen.
right. Oh, they take the shadows out of this one, but this is the one I picked out off your website, Sarah, and it was just like when black and white approaches that metallic look, it just is to me is just really striking. But with this mud crack scene that you found, it's just like, you know, there's this hierarchy of structure, and then there's a substructure, and then there's a substructure below that, and that was just like, that is crazy. And it's just really, really pretty, and it has like a botanical look to it too, which is, you know, like with like the leaf structures and the veins and the smaller veins and all that. It's just really cool when nature kind of like, you know, when inorganic things mimic organic things, and or vice versa.
Yeah.
So
We haven't seen patterns like this again.
Mm.
In this particular area, it's fascinating because I've been going back there now for years to this particular spot, and every year they're different. The cracks are different. So it's the same source.
What's the spot? The coordinates, please. Exact location.
Let's hear that.
Somewhere in Death Valley National Park, which is the largest national park in the lower 48. So good luck with that. But that's
Such a gatekeeper.
I think there's a bigger point there of these are everywhere. So if you walk up a wash or you see a little glimmer of some like light might be reflecting off of something out in the distance, it's probably a playa. Or I've had people say, I haven't seen any playas in Death Valley, but I know that they drove into the park and literally the highway goes through a playa. So it's like, open your eyes and look because they're everywhere.
Yeah, get
Not
out
like-
of the car and walk a few feet.
Yeah,
Right.
like this particular one, it doesn't matter where it is because there are hundreds in other places.
Isn't it funny how like so many photographers go to places and like look for a specific thing or like I don't know. Like I remember one time I was like at I was in Escalante and I was at the visitor center just like hanging out, like trying to get permits or something like that. And somebody came in and they were like, "Where is the grand staircase?"
Like
They're
you're
like, "Where is the grand staircase national monument? Like where am I gonna find the like staircase that?"
You walked up it on the way in the building.
That's pretty hilarious since it's like it's a massive landscape that you're like standing on.
Right. Like you're in it right now.
Yeah, you're in it. You're in one of the stairs.
I love this shot. Mike, this would look fucking killer on your wall.
Sure would, buddy.
I mean, literally, I mean,
Sure
this one is
Yeah,
so
well
good.
deserving.
The textures, I mean, I looked at this one and I mean your portfolio's super sick. And
What do you charge for a print like this, Sarah? Like a 16 by 24 Lumichrome, like $800, 1250, 1500.
Like 5,000 because I have to feel motivated enough to print it.
Mike's
Have you-
got that.
Have you ever printed this
No
one?
problem.
I have not printed this one, no. I think it might look pretty cool on like a pearl or a high gloss paper.
I think this on like acrylic would just be so fucking dope.
Yeah, because the like sheen.
Yeah, it would just look so killer and just so clean on the right wall. Like kind of like a postmodern like type setup. This would be the shit. Sarah, I'll reach out to you later. You guys fuck off.
Sarah,
also-
when you're
I was going to say there's also some metallic papers that
Yeah, like
could
pearl.
look really pretty wild with this one.
That's one of my
Yeah.
favorite things about black and white in general, though, is that you can get that silvery look in a way that you
Yeah.
just can't with color.
Right.
And some
I love that.
subjects, they just like leaves and like playas that have light on them. Just that silvery look is just so magical.
Yeah.
No question.
yeah, when you photographed this, there was a glow about the land, right?
No, because this was during the middle of the day.
Oh, really? Wow. I would have thought this was like twilight, like soft light or something, or like diffused light
No, this was it was probably
in
after
the shade.
or like a late afternoon overcast type of, but definitely it's not any kind of like the glow about the land thing would be 20 to 30 minutes after sunset, and so it's not
Yeah.
that light, but there's enough light where it emphasizes the texture.
And like you have tons of photographs of mud cracks that are amazing. I know a lot of it is intuitive, like it just you shoot it when it feels good, but like consciously, is there anything you're kind of looking for or trying to do when you're photographing these kinds of scenes, like where you're choosing how far to zoom in or like where to cut the edges off or?
Yeah, I think Eric, you and I, the inclusion versus exclusion, like exclusion is just as important and often more important. So with these kinds of photos, I'll find something I think is interesting, but 90% of my effort is on the framing.
Mm-hmm.
The
The
middle,
edges.
the easy part. Yeah.
Yeah.
Being really careful about the edges.
So what are you looking for when you cut it off? Like what kind of edges do you want?
I want things where there's not like a major piece right on the edge with a tip touching where it creates that point of tension, or where there's a really big piece on the edge and all the other pieces are small, or something that has more texture in just one little area, so it's naturally going to draw your attention just to that texture instead of what's happening in the rest of the frame. Because I generally think like, if you have edges that are harmonious, that's what's going to allow people to focus on the middle, which is going to be the
Right.
more important part. Versus if you have things on the edges where it's like, oh, some of the little corners that are on the right side, those are the things that can pull your attention away, and I try to minimize those as much as possible.
Nice.
That's great.
Michael Bolino is like mind blown right now.
No, I'm processing that. I never actually,
He's-
honestly, never thought about that, but it makes a ton of sense. And yeah,
Well, since
Great
Mike took
insight.
one of the Death Valley photos that I think I'm not usually jealous of photos, and oh my gosh, we saw you in Death Valley like the evening after you took that, and you guys were so excited. I'm like, I can't wait to see this both positively and negatively. Like, I'm gonna be jealous, and then I'm gonna be really happy for Mike that he got a great photo because you guys were so excited.
was that
You were
with the
with
sky?
Adrian Klein, right, Michael?
Yeah, Adrian and I went down there. Was that with the sky, Sarah? The big Sierra
No, the
wave?
little divot things.
Oh, the little like swirlies. Yeah,
Yeah.
that was fantastic. And just a little teeny bit of light lasted just a minute or two. So if I wasn't photographing it then, I wouldn't have gotten that little side light, that little touch of light, which helped out.
Yeah, like that's one of the best Death Valley abstract photos I've seen.
No way.
That's
Really?
Thank you.
That's a big statement coming from you,
That's
Sarah, because you've gone
insane,
there like
coming from Sarah Marino, who spent so long down there and whose work is so vast and deep and just polished from that area. So I'm humbled by that. Thank you.
Did you Venmo her like $25 before this episode
right.
or something, Michael? Like,
No, her fee is 50
That was, like,
for
teed
a
up.
shout out. So like, she's her rates are up since you Venmoed her last time. For sure.
I'm just more familiar with Mike's work. Like I know Mike's and Eric's work more. So
well, I haven't been to Death Valley for years.
yeah.
Sarah, you're making it weird.
I feel a little uncomfortable.
There will be no more comments about
Hey,
anyone's
Mike,
photography except for mine.
Mike, Jimmy, hey, let's go
Yeah.
drink some beer.
It's the best $30 they
Good
ever
drift.
spent.
Yeah, really weird. I'm getting ready to buy Sarah's image here, and she's really putting me out.
Well, like,
Can I put a plug in for Sarah's ebooks? There's free ebooks around Death Valley and Mount Rainier. And seriously, they're free. Just sign up for her newsletter and Ron's newsletter, and they will send you
they're free.
free
You don't
books,
even have
and
to sign up.
Well, sorry.
You don't even have to sign up.
Well, sign up anyway. Sign up and then get the free.
Yeah, don't tell her.
They are such an amazing collection of images. They do such depth of work. So if you do not already have those, just sign up and get them because they're incredible. And I believe you have a black and white and a color version of your Death Valley work. Is that correct, Sarah?
Yeah, the Death Valley black and white one's kind of slim, but slim for me.
But they're not the same images.
Yeah, they're different images.
Right.
Well, as I will say, as in preparation for being on, I did look at everybody's work, and it was all very impressive. So it was a great opportunity to, I think, dive into all of your work, like especially the three of you that I don't know quite as well, and just get to know you better. So I was inspired by everyone's work, and I think it's important to note that. I'm just talking about Mike's and Eric's a little bit more because I know them better. So
That's a really good
Wow,
recovery.
I appreciate
That's
that.
that's a good recovery, Sarah. Appreciate it.
Guys, I told her to say that
Well done.
before the
You did.
episode, so you can.
I saw
Send me a couple
her.
cans.
I saw her reading it. I think it was from a text.
Eric and I split the Venmo.
including research of all the hosts.
It's like this. And Bennett says, I said.
No, I don't say things like that just to be nice. I truly believe it. So I absolutely believe it.
We're just messing with you, Sarah. You're the
Yeah.
best.
You're awesome.
Huge.
Okay, hey, you know what?
Lordy.
I'm going to take this opportunity because this is my shit right here. I'm going to talk about
I was very close to picking this one, but I just
Dude.
had to go with my backlit.
Well,
mossy
you put
trees.
your fork in our hand when
this thing right here. When Eric claimed his, I said, go fuck yourself, dude. I got something better. I got something better. But I'm calling a timeout on the field. You guys. So I stumbled onto this bad boy right here. This is a Claim 52 out of Eugene, Oregon. It's a stuffed blueberry toast crunch.
Wait, that's like the worst transition I've ever seen. You're like hyping up the photo, and all of a sudden it's beer. Like,
No, I've been waiting. And Sarah.
Sarah likes the smoothies.
Yeah.
Sarah,
Just
after
because
you
you've
got
been waiting doesn't make it a good transition.
Give me your address because this sounds like just like it tastes. A blueberry toast crunch. Are you fucking kidding me? This thing right here is absolutely legit.
That
found-
sounds really good.
It is so good. It's like you're drinking blueberry toast. So, Claim 52, 7%. I'm going to get one of these out to all of you. It is really ridiculous.
Nice.
Did you get that at the local bottle shop that gets Claim 52 sometimes? Because
Yeah,
they're in Oregon, but they're in Eugene.
Yeah, that one you and I went down to, I was there for like an hour and a half last night, just like looking the aisles, just saying, okay, I need to bring something to the game that's a little bit different, and that was it. And they had like a few cases sitting on the floor. It's one of those deals where you don't know what you have. You know what
Yeah.
I'm
It's
saying?
awesome.
So I'll get that out to you guys, and
That's awesome,
you,
man.
You as well, Sarah. I mean, you're gonna go, dude. You were right. Your photos suck, but you know what you're talking about when it comes to beer. but let's back up to this beauty. This thing right
Thank
here.
you.
I absolutely am not going to talk about this. Sarah, I spent 3 days looking at your site. I was like just going back and forth. I saw some just absolutely killer stuff, but this is the one that resonated with me. And beyond like the visual of the awesomeness here, I really love the story that you had with this one. As far as like you and Ron being there and kind of your journey of finding this and you capturing the shot. So you're going to go ahead and take it away for us. Come on.
Alex Noriega as well, right?
Yeah, we were with Alex and Taylor. This was so much work to find these plants. So Guy Tal is the person who I first saw this plant. And I usually am not a copier. Like I don't want to go, I want to find my own stuff. But in this particular case, I feel like I've established myself as somebody who loves plants. And so seeking it out, I felt okay about it. I didn't feel comfortable at all asking him for any information. So just that little bit of information in his captions was enough to start doing my own research. So looking in field guides, looking on iNaturalist, trying to figure out where these things grow in Death Valley. And I had a few leads. The first ones didn't work out. So we identified a canyon.
And this is the.
Well, I wasn't going to say the name, but yes.
I'll blank it out.
Okay.
I'll bleep it out.
'Cause yeah, I feel like
Sorry.
I did a ton of work on this one. Yeah.
Because I feel like Guy Tal has said what it is in his caption, so it's not like a secret, like what
It's
the
not a
plant is
secret.
called. Right.
No, it's not a secret at all.
That's so crazy.
I just feel like I put in the work to find it, and if somebody else wants to find it, they can put in the work too.
Yeah.
Hey,
So
Like,
so
I know
I'm,
guys in
hey,
it.
I'm with fucking Sarah.
So we
Rewind
drove
that shit,
on
Bennett.
a bad dirt road for like 2
what
and
does
a half.
that entail though? Like how do you find like a specific kind of plant in the desert? Like how does that even work?
Sorry.
Well,
Sarah?
Because I mean I would shoot the shit out of this thing,
Guys
but I don't know
up.
where to
Good
start.
take two.
I used iNaturalist and field guides. So once I knew
Okay.
the name and I figured out the habitat, so that was the key thing, is figuring out the habitat. Once I figured out the habitat, then I identified a few places, and the place we eventually found it, I thought it was a possibility, but we were hiking for the canyon. So we've done I think Ron's done 76 canyons, hiked 76 canyons, and I've done like 72 in Death Valley. And this one particular one, we just really wanted to see for the canyon. But I thought there was still a chance for the, which was stupid. Why didn't I bring
You
my
said it.
macro lens, which is a different part of the story? So we go down one canyon, go down another canyon, and Ron's like, I think that's it. And it was just
Wow.
a full rosette in limestone gravel.
So
Which-
was it really just like one? Because like all of you guys came away with unique, like really incredible shots. Like Alex Noriega has at least one that I know of that's really cool.
Yeah.
Ron has like 7 somehow. Like he's always
Yeah.
getting the
Alex
most out of
had
every.
one. I think I had 2, and then Ron has like a 30 image portfolio.
True story.
But the plant is probably like this big, like 2 sets of rosettes.
Are you
Okay.
serious?
Wow.
And then once we found this one, as we were walking back out of the canyon, because we stopped to photograph it again, we photographed it, went into the canyon, and then which the canyon, oh my God, was one of the best we've seen in Death Valley. And then once we realized that's what it was, we saw some dead ones. So we definitely know where to go back to see them, but in a different season. But the ridiculous thing is Ron's the only one that had a macro lens. So we were rotating the macro lens among all of us.
Oh, that's
Wow.
so funny.
Wow.
The 4 of you.
Well, Taylor did have appropriate equipment, so she photographed it with her own gear. But Ron, me, and Alex all have the Canon R5, so we were rotating it. Which
Lucky.
then, of course, meant it took forever because we're all obsessing over this incredibly cool plant because
Right.
it's like crazy. The color is crazy. The hairs are crazy. But then when we came back, it had nicer reflected light on it.
Was that
So-
like a 100 millimeter macro?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. definitely need a macro. It's small enough that you need a macro for it. This
Yeah,
is
my
a focus.
Okay. My favorite part about this is like everything here is amazing, like the color palette and everything, and like the nice reflected warm light. But the hairs that like fill in the scene with nice texture is my favorite part about it, and like all the photos that you guys shot here.
Like I didn't realize it would be so small, which is why I didn't have my macro lens with me. I thought it was going to be like a 24 to 105, or that I could use 100 to 500.
That's what she said.
Not an episode goes by.
There's like no comment. You bastard.
I walk into that joke so
Totally did.
so I'm used to it. Yeah, so it was just, it's one of those, I think I feel so much more excited about it because I put in so much work to find the subject. And then once we found it, it was so cool. And then we continued looking for them, and we've actually found another place that doesn't require like a 12-mile hike. So that's a bonus.
So you photographed several different ones.
This one is the only one I've processed.
Oh, okay.
But I have other ones from the other place we found.
Yeah, it's super sweet. And when I read the story, I was like, I'm not even talking about this. I'm letting Sarah do it because I thought it was pretty cool. So
was this a in-camera focus stack?
Yeah. Or no,
Okay.
The Canon doesn't combine the files.
Oh, it doesn't?
No.
It's a pain in the ass.
Oh, okay. Because I heard you talking about that on your Talking Landscape interview. I watched it actually yesterday to make sure we didn't really like repeat anything. But
That's a lot of overload of listening to me talk about nature photography.
yeah, I never get tired of it, Sarah.
Half hours.
Okay, so that's interesting. So did you have, like, how many frames did it take to focus stack this, do you think?
I think
like
this
just off
one's
the top of your head.
15
Oh,
or so.
wow.
And
How
I
many?
should have done more. 15.
And are you just like slowly like twisting it and shooting, or are you like actually eyeing where you're focusing on? And
I can't remember if I had the R or the R5, because the R does not have the autofocus bracketing feature. The
Okay.
R5 does, and I can't remember which one. But yeah, with a macro subject, I'm looking at like moving on the individual, like there are those little lobes. I would move from lobe to lobe to lobe would probably be how I would focus.
but the R5 doesn't automatically blend them into a single file.
No.
No.
it
So it'll
doesn't.
bracket it for you, but you still gotta blend them together in Photoshop or Helicon.
Yeah,
Mhm.
which is good
Okay.
because like I'm glad that I have the files, because I like if grasses are moving or something, I don't want it to blend the file for me. Because then
Because this is like perfect. Like
Yeah.
I can't see anything, any kind of imperfection.
I can see something that's always bothered me that my eye goes straight to it and I need to fix it. But I think the back corners are a little softer. Like I probably should have done more narrow increments and more files.
I think I see the thing that you're saying, but only because you mentioned it. Otherwise, like I thought it was perfect. I'm not going to point it out because I don't want to detract from the photo. But to me,
this thing I've tried darkening and it ruins the hairs. So
yeah.
anyway,
Super good.
thank
Yeah,
you.
it's amazing.
This photo, I really love this photo of mine. So I'll say that too.
I love it.
It's incredible.
It was a lot of work, which is maybe why I love it.
Absolutely.
It was fun to see, because Alex has such exceptional, like Alex was able to encompass the full plant in a way that I wasn't. So when I saw his, I was a little like, I wish I had tried harder on the top down view. But I also, this is so different from Guy Tal's photo.
Mhm.
That's what I was going to
The
say.
reasons that I felt good about it is that it didn't feel like I was just copying him.
No, not at all. It doesn't even make me think of it at all.
I feel like this seems almost like an underwater image. Like it doesn't seem terrestrial. It seems like could be like coral reef, and this hair is just kind of like flowing with the current of the water. It has such a nice feel overall, which is different than that top-down view that Alex and Guy have, which both of those images are incredible. I kind of like the difference in this image and your take on it.
Very nice.
No, that's a great point. That's a great point, Mike.
Okay,
And I do,
Mm.
and I love the, I love the, as I think Eric said before, that color palette is fantastic. It's so subtle, but so perfectly blended and balanced. This is another photo you just stare at for hours.
That's
I
awesome.
feel so self-indulgent to be talking about my own work to this degree.
Yeah, there's only one more image, I think. So
Is this mine?
what do
No,
you
I'm just
what do you
fucking
guys?
around. Just kidding. I'm kidding. So what I'll start off by saying is that I originally had about 5 or 6 images of yours, Sarah, that I wanted, and they were what I'm so drawn to are the images that like Mike, like the one that Mike used, that kind of soft focus macro. Your work in that realm was incredibly inspiring, and I've really enjoyed looking at it. But I also knew that these guys were gonna choose those because so I just know them. So I wanted to choose something a little bit different.
I
And
think the phrase is Neanderthals.
yeah, unoriginal. No, I don't. But like, I wanted to choose something different. And the other thing that I really, really appreciate about your work, and you have a number of images like this, is your foliage work. And this isn't really I guess a traditional foliage image, but it has that kind of color palette. And I love the way that you, in your foliage images, you work with a color palette, and there's a great balance to the colors in your foliage images. And I really appreciate that. I'm pretty living in Vermont. I'm pretty, particular about foliage images. So when I saw this one, what I liked about it was that it had that color balance that you're, so good at portraying in your foliage images. And it wasn't a macro, it's a larger scene, but that doesn't really jump out right at you the first time you look at it. So you got to spend some time with it, look at it. So it's a very engaging image in that sense. So I was really drawn to it. I spent a lot of time with it. I love the color balance. It just, again, an image that you could just kind of let your eyes wander around. And that was, it was a really cool experience looking at it. So that's why I chose this one.
Yeah, so it seems like this is like scrub oak with some like sagebrush.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
exactly
I'm
what it is.
pretty familiar with this because I see this a lot in Utah. And I actually recall a specific moment when I was in Moab, like in the La Salle Mountains, and there was like an area like this, and I tried shooting it, and I couldn't make anything that was interesting because it's all the same level, so it's kind of flat. So that was kind of difficult for me. Like there wasn't any kind of like certain point of interest, and I couldn't make like an interesting enough like tapestry or pattern as a whole to make an image that I thought was interesting. But this one is like super well executed, so I was super impressed when I also saw this one on your website, but I had to pick the other one because that's just like I'm a fanboy of that one. Like that's just that's the shit for me. But yeah, I was stoked that Mike picked this one because this is another one that caught my eye, and I was like, wow, like she was able to do something that I wasn't able to do myself. So I was super impressed.
I have 2 comments on this one. I was writing a blog post today and I wanted to use this photo, and I'm like, no, nobody's gonna like this one. So I didn't use it. So it's fascinating to then have it be one that you guys picked out and talked about.
Oh gosh.
The other thing is this is one of those photos where it's just not there for me. Like I started out with a 70 to 200. The 200 wasn't long enough. I got to 100 to 400. The 400 isn't quite long enough. I have the 500, but this is so far across a valley that then you get all this atmospheric distortion. And it's just, I keep on going back to this spot, and I keep on trying, and I keep on just not quite getting there. So it's this one's the closest I've gotten, but I'm going to get something better from that spot one of these days.
I mean, when I look at this, it's just like a rainbow of colors, and it's so well distributed throughout the frame. Like, what is it you're looking for that you feel like could be better than this? Like, what do you feel like this is lacking?
Well, the atmospheric distortion is a little bit of an issue. So I want one where the fine details look good to me. And then I also feel like I feel like there's just a little bit more. Like maybe I could catch it a little bit earlier or get it in a year with a little bit of some fewer of yellows and have it be more of the purples and pinks.
But then you wouldn't have like the variety, which I feel like is what makes it interesting. Like having that range, like it's like a whole rainbow, like from yellow to purple.
I like
Warm
the
to cool.
range, but I don't necessarily love the yellows. I could even shift that yellow to be a little bit more orange, but
Ooh, that's not okay, Sarah.
Hold on.
Completely
just
okay.
because
Hey, cut, hey,
Episode's
Eric,
over.
Eric, cut that.
I could enter a lot of my photos in there. Let's just say that. Yeah, so love the subject and like B+ on the photo. I think it's just I want something. I feel like I can do better at that spot. That's I think my main that I really like. I love the subject. I just feel like I haven't done my best there.
So this is a spot you can revisit like pretty much any fall, like it's in the San Juans or something, or
Yeah, it's in the San Juans. We photographed it in the spring, and I kind of like the spring version actually. So
is that
It's
when Alex came out there? Because I remember he had some nice like dappled light scrub oak photos in the spring.
yeah, it's from one of those places that we all visited.
Okay.
Anyways, I feel like this is perfect.
Well,
Yeah, I do too.
I
mean,
praise.
I know what you mean though, and it's like I think a lot of people go through that when you there's a scene and you have kind of in your mind's eye what it's going to look like, and it can be frustrating to not get it exactly where you want, but at the same time you're producing a body of work, or not a body, a piece of work that is just like absolutely astounding to the people who look at it. So I mean, I definitely I get where you're coming from. I know what it's like to not really kind of bring your vision fully to life, but I could say that everybody else looking at this is a phenomenal image.
Well, thank you. It's really funny that today I was just doubting it. Like I'm like I really really like this one, but it's not the right photo for a blog post where I want to draw attention to something. And then you guys are like, yeah, it's great.
It's beautiful. Great pick,
Yeah.
Mike. Great
When
pick.
I'm looking at it, I'm wondering how it would be different without the two anchors that you have in the upper left and lower right, without the rock.
The
and
little
without
pine tree.
Yeah.
the
Yeah,
little
that pine tree is- I
Like,
love
if
that
those
pine
were
tree.
gone, they're so subtle, but they make it really tight too.
Mhm.
I
But
think
if
without the pine trees, it'd be harder to tell what you're looking at.
yeah, true. It gets it a good scale.
That's a
Yeah.
good point.
But
Because I
they,
think
you know,
I think most people looking at this that you can look at the pine tree and know that it's a tree.
Mhm.
But unless you're familiar with the foliage that grows out here and you pay attention, because a lot of people I think don't even, including me when I first moved out here, I didn't realize that the oaks were so beautiful. I was so focused on the aspens that you don't even know what you're looking at. Because it's
Right.
like, what trees are purple in the West?
Right. Yeah, some people might be suspicious of it, but the scrub oak definitely turns like magenta and purple, and despite whatever Comp Stomp says, that stupid account, whoever's running that, it actually
Ron.
happens.
Ron,
Yeah, Ron
Ron,
is
you freaking
Yeah.
negative
savage.
energy.
I think it's Ron.
He's really done a disservice to the game.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like this is nice though. And whenever I shoot like telephoto hillsides of scrub oak, I always think of like fruity pebbles for some reason.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that doesn't really have to do with like the image being good or anything like that. But yeah, I think this one's really nice. Like there's a great balance, nice dispersion, like the patches of the scrub oak and the sagebrush filling it in. I don't know. I don't really know what else you'd be looking for. I think this is great. So I know first and foremost we have to be satisfied with our own work, but sometimes external validation is fun. Like, it's interesting at least to hear. Maybe it doesn't validate the image for ourselves. But
It's like I wish that the canyon was just a little more narrow, so that a 500 millimeter lens with less wavies.
so it's nature's fault. It's not you.
nature's fault. Yeah, it's nature's fault.
Yeah.
I'm blaming nature for my inadequacies.
I'm picking up what you're laying down.
So Eric, you're thinking of Fruity Pebbles here? It looks more like a blueberry smoothie, which is what I thought.
Blueberry crumble or toast.
The toasted.
Yeah.
Yeah, awesome stuff though, Sarah. Thanks so much for putting up with us for who knows how long this has been.
Yeah. You told me an hour and a half.
Did I?
Yeah.
I'm surprised I said any kind of time limit because you never know how these things
Bloody
are.
liar. Because we're on. We started at 8:30. Oh, East Coast time. 3 hours.
Yeah. 3 hours and 7 minutes.
Once I edit it, it'll be a little shorter.
Sarah's like, yeah, dude, you tripled it up.
Hey, it's worth it though. If there's anybody worth watching for 3 hours, it's definitely Sarah Marino. We're all huge fans of your work,
Agreed.
and
Yeah, for sure.
yeah, we couldn't be more appreciative of and grateful for you coming on the show. So, thanks a
Yeah.
lot for being willing to do this.
Definitely.
It was very fun. I do feel as if I was subjected to some, like those photos were.
You were so good, Sarah.
Yeah.
You're so good.
So good.
You had a chance to walk out like
That's
after the
true.
first minute.
I did. I'm done with this.
Ron's sleeping on the couch tonight.
Yeah, blame it on him.
So I don't think I did. Ron send you the screenshots of the Discord post?
I can't say who sent those,
I'm guessing it was either.
but I'm not
Ron
in
or
the
Payne.
Discord group, so it wasn't me. But
I'm guessing it was either Matt Painter,
Matt.
because I mentioned to Matt that I was going to talk to you.
oh really?
Yeah, we're supposed to be. We're trying to meet up for some photography, and so I told him we couldn't leave tonight because of this. So
What's
and Matt
funny
said-
is like Matt Payne went on like a 3-month backpacking trip, and he came back, and I was talking to him. I was like, "Yeah, dude, like I started a new YouTube show, like I had another baby, like the whole world is different now."
That's so funny.
Yeah, we want to have Matt on at some point because he's
Yeah,
definitely
him
a
on.
fan of photography and beer.
yeah, it seems like he would fit right in many ways.
He'd be funny.
Well, it was fun. Thank you for having me on.
Thank you,
I
Sarah. Appreciate it.
opportunity to talk about other people's photos, and then it's fun to hear people talk about mine. So thank you.
We appreciate it.
So, what is the most profound photography advice you can give to our viewers right now on the spot?
Most profound photography advice. I don't think anything profound other than just be open-minded. And if somebody uses the word best or only or like judgmental words about what you should do, probably stop listening to them because they're leading you in a bad direction.
Yeah.
Love
Pretty
it.
good.
That's great stuff, Sarah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you still have any cider left?
Nope.
Oh, wow.
Good job. Well done.
Work.
I saw her like crack 3 or 4 of those, so I don't think you guys
She
saw that.
was pouring them down low. Like, I
She
can't
was.
say.
She
Muting.
totally was. I was spotted, and I was going to throw up a number, but I'm not going to do it.
It was a lot, though.
It was a lot.
If I had
Well-
like 2 or 3, it'd be not good. I'd be embarrassing myself left and right.
Giselle, my wife, for those that don't know, wanted to say hi and check in on like if everything's going well for you guys. And we also make the chili that you gave us the recipe for like all the time. So we always think about you here at the house. The
Yeah.
beer and coffee chili. It's amazing.
Yeah, it is a beer and
sounds
coffee
amazing.
chili. It's pretty. I just made it for. We were visiting my mom, and I just made it. So yeah,
Nice.
so I say hi, and all the kids.
Will do. Well, cheers to Sarah and her
Cheers,
amazing
Sarah.
photography.
Yes.
And
Cheers.
producing
Cheers.
amazing stuff, Sarah. Keep it up. We love your
Great,
work.
sh-
Absolutely.
great
Absolutely.
show,
yeah,
Sarah.
For sure.
Appreciate you.
Yeah.